want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Well, hello. The guy.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Jordan Uhl with you guys. Huge show ahead. We got election day, you crazy? We're having elections today. There's some chance the Democrats are gonna sweep all of the elections, which would be interesting, fascinating, and great because they're not supporting Donald Trump. And I voted yes on Prop 50. I hope you guys are out there voting. That's the strike back against Texas's redistricting. I don't believe in unilateral disarmament. You guys all know that. Zohran Mamdani is on the ballot in New York. Are we gonna get to that story? Of course. So, and then unfortunately, are there some stories regarding Israel? Yes. Here we go. Israel has detained its top military lawyer, its own lawyer, because she revealed information about how the IDF was raping Palestinians. So they were like, well, that might be true, but how dare you tell people about the atrocities we're committing? That's literally her job. Anyway, she's been arrested. So that's not surprising that the terrorists would arrest anyone with decency and morality. Anyways, that's a little bit later in the program. MAGA Civil War continues. And then programming notes for today, we got Operation Joy today. It's Tuesday, so that's what we do instead of the revolution. But joy is an act of defiance and rebellion as well, as we've talked about on that. That's gonna be available to everyone. We're gonna have old school tonight, but I understand if you're conflicted because Anna Kasparian is going to be on CNN's election night coverage. Interesting, with Charlemagne the God and Alex Michelson, who is a host here in LA that's interviewed almost all of us. And so he's got a new CNN show and it is tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern to 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So check out Anna there. So as soon as the Young Turks and Operation Joy ends here, you can start watching Anna on CNN, and then dealer's choice for old school or election night coverage with Anna. Okay, anyways, lots to get to. So Jordan, you excited about election day?
I am very excited, and especially excited for Cuomo to drive off into the sunset and stop pretending like he lives in New York City. Very excited.
Okay, good. All right, so let's do it.
Let's start with this.
As far as New York is concerned, as you've talked about, as we've said, unfortunately, the anti-Mamdani vote is being split between Cuomo and Sliwa. And President Trump tonight put out a statement being clear that if you vote for Sliwa, who's polling at about a third of where Cuomo is, you're just throwing your vote away. The anti-Mamdani vote, which is really the pro-New York City vote, the pro-America vote, needs to unite behind the leading candidate, and that's Andrew Cuomo.
In the lead up to today's mayoral race in New York City, Andrew Cuomo secured some clutch last-minute endorsements from the like of Stephen Miller, Elon Musk, and even Donald Trump himself. Before we get into it, Cenk, these are some surprising, potentially, endorsements for a guy who still claims to be a Democrat. What do you make of it? What are your 2 cents?
Yeah, well, that's so surprising that the corporate Republicans would back the corporate Democrat. It's not like we've said on the show a million times, they're the same. Told you. We're gonna get into the details here in a minute, but also, what does this have to do with the death of Dick Cheney? Well, I'll also explain that in a minute.
Well, during his 60 Minutes interview, Donald Trump said, "I'm not a fan of Cuomo one way or the other. But if it's gonna be between a bad Democrat and a communist, I'm gonna pick the bad Democrat all the time, to be honest with you." He was more direct in a subsequent Truth Social post, writing, "A vote for Curtis Sliwa, who looks much better without the beret, is a vote for Mamdani. Whether you personally like Andrew Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him and hope he does a fantastic job. He is capable of it. Mamdani is not. Now, this morning, he went full bigot, posting any Jewish person that votes for Zoran Mamdani, a proven and self-professed Jew hater, is a stupid person. And of course, that's not true. Mamdani has not said anything anti-Semitic. Of course, he does not hate Jews, but they're trying it out of desperation. Mamdani capitalized on Trump's comments, posting this on X. Congratulations, Andrew Cuomo. I know you worked hard for this with the graphic. Trump endorses Cuomo. When Andrew Cuomo was asked about Trump's comments on a radio show called Hot 97 yesterday, he appeared to abruptly drop off the call. Take a look.
Your boy was just on 60 Minutes, Cuomo, saying that you're his guy.
No.
Trump said you're his candidate. If he had to pick a bad Democrat or what did he say? Or a communist. Or a communist, he's picking you.
Hello?
I think that they cut him off. I think he had to rap.
You just get, oh. I really wanted to hear that answer.
Now, Cuomo did later acknowledge the question at a campaign stop, saying, Trump called me a bad Democrat. First of all, I happen to be a good Democrat and a proud Democrat, and I'm going to stay a proud Democrat. Mamdani is not a communist, he's a socialist, but we don't need a socialist mayor either. And it's not just Stephen Miller and Trump going to bat for Cuomo. Elon Musk also joined the party, tweeting, remember to vote in New York. Bear in mind that a vote for Curtis is really a vote for Mum Dummy or whatever his name is. Vote Cuomo. Now, unfortunately for them, polling leading up to today consistently shows Mamdani winning. Atlas Intel is the most recent poll, which gives Mamdani a 5-point lead, but it really is an outlier compared with all of these other polls from Marist, Quinnipiac, Emerson, Suffolk, Beacon Research, etc. So we'll see as the results come in what Mamdani's margin of victory is, whether it's a single digit or double digit like others are projecting. But Cenk, what do you make of this as we go into election night?
Yeah, so I remember people saying, well, if you got to choose between a bad Republican and a fascist, you really should vote for Nikki Haley over Donald Trump. Oh, look at that. Now it's in reverse. Huh, interesting. I remember Kamala Harris embracing Dick Cheney, even though, as we're gonna explain later in the show, because he died today, that he was for warrantless wiretapping, torture, needless wars, etc. So Kamala Harris is totally okay with Dick Cheney as long as it's expedient and convenient. And Donald Trump is totally okay with Andrew Cuomo as long as it's expedient and convenient. It's almost as if a show that was telling you all along that the establishment totally agrees and it's all theater was correct. So why is everybody backing Cuomo, even though all those years, those Republicans were like, oh, Cuomo's the worst. They used to call him a socialist, communist, Maoist, and all that stuff, right? Because no, they know that Andrew Cuomo will serve the donors. And Kamala Harris knew that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney would serve the donors. Now, they did speak out against Trump's nonsense, what I think is a coup attempt on January 6th. Good, I gave him credit for that, but that doesn't mean you need to embrace Dick Cheney. And in this case, I know why they're doing it. Of course, Jordan, we all know they're trying to drive whatever Republican votes that Slee was gonna get towards Cuomo so that he can collect Republican and Democratic votes so he can win and he could serve Israel instead of New York. Like, are we confused about this? We all know, right? I mean, what is it? You know how many billionaires have given to Andrew Cuomo's campaign so far? 26. And now, to be fair to them, Mamdani is just their perfect kryptonite, right? He won't bow his head to Israel. So already, like, they're gonna despise him. That's plenty enough for all the corporate Republicans and Democrats and the unit party and the establishment to get together and back Andrew Cuomo 200%, and that is what they have done, right? So now, but on top of that, he says that he's gonna raise taxes by about 2% for the wealthy in New York City. Oh my God. Then Alice Walton comes in, that's the heir to the Walmart fortune, and a couple of other guys, and they're like, how dare he try to represent the average citizen? Only the billionaire class. And Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, all of them are like, yeah, only the billionaires, only the billionaires. Where are you guys? Are you fighting for the average American? Never, right? So yeah, there was only one thing that Cuomo was right about. Yeah, he's not a communist, he's a socialist. So Jordan, I'm curious to see what's gonna happen after the election, because all these giant liars all said, but Republicans, Democrats, mainstream media, all of them, that Mamdani was just the worst thing ever. He was gonna endanger all the Jewish people in New York. Their lives are in danger. Another 9/11 might happen. Dirty Muslim, communist, and that's it. And all of the financial center in New York is gonna collapse, and there's gonna be attack against Jewish people left and right, and he's gonna allow it and encourage it. When none of that happens, you know what's gonna happen, right, Jordan? They're all gonna come back and pretend they never said it. And then the next time they're gonna do it again and again. Really, there isn't that much difference between the establishment and Alex Jones. So Alex Jones, the whole time Obama was president, oh, he's gonna put you in FEMA camps. You're all gonna be stuffed into FEMA camps. Ted Cruz comes in like a moron. You're gonna stuff you into Hobbit homes. Where are the Hobbit homes? Where are the FEMA camps? And we're gonna ask the same thing about Mamdani after, if he's lucky enough to win today, and good enough to win today. We're gonna ask the same question afterwards, and we'll be the only ones. Everyone else will have instant amnesia, and they'll be like, oh, did we say he was gonna do all those terrible things? And he didn't do any of them? Let's never talk about it again, because we wanna be able to fearmonger, drive fear and hatred, and divide you guys so that the establishment candidate wins no matter what.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to touch on here. So I want to remind people of what this campaign was like, the tone and tenor the entire time. And ask yourself, if you saw Andrew Cuomo advocate proactively for any policy other than new and more cops. Because I looked extensively and could not find anything in advertisements, in messaging, in tweets. Sure, he's got a policy page on his website, but I was reminded last night by a friend that his housing policy section was written by ChatGPT. If that's not a middle finger to New Yorkers, I don't know what is. He doesn't even care enough to spend any time or resources in his campaign to draft a policy on an issue that was at the forefront of people's minds in that primary. He knows he needs to try to talk about it, but he doesn't care because he doesn't care about you. And all he has done the entire time is scaremonger over Zoran's religion, his ethnicity, his background, his upbringing, scaremongering over hollow accusations of anti-Semitism, trying to claim that things that other people have said are somehow on him and he must denounce every single thing every other person has said. They've tried to distract you from the real issues affecting working people in New York. And Zoran Mamdani has refused to take the bait again and again and focused on the issues. He's focused on housing, he's focused on affordability, he's focused on transportation. Those are things that matter. And when you see this guy who they continue to attack as being inexperienced or ill-equipped to run the city, the reason voters got behind him is because he was speaking to issues that they care about. And that is a rarity. And it's especially and sadly a rarity in the Democratic Party. So when you see people like Chuck Schumer coming out of the polling location today and his team refusing to say who he voted for, know this problem goes all the way to the top. That the Democratic elites do not care about your working conditions. They would rather work at the behest of corporations and special interests than address your material needs. That's pathetic. It's a problem in both parties, but we can maybe try to push the Democratic Party a little bit more effectively than we could the Republican Party. And then there's another element of this. Zoran Mamdani has built up one of the most impressive grassroots campaigns I have seen in recent years. I would say the most analogous is probably Obama 08. But unlike Obama 08, Mamdani seems like in a better position to actually implement that change agenda. But it doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop today. It's just getting started. So I want to remind everybody, and especially those of you watching in New York, you're not done after election today. It's just getting started. And if and when he's elected, when he takes office, it's going to be imperative to continue staying involved, getting involved in your community, taking action to help support the implementation of that agenda, because there's going to be a ton of money thrown around in that city to try to stop it. And it comes at your expense.
Yeah. So let's talk about Cuomo a little bit more, because what kind of campaign did he run? Jordan's absolutely right. He didn't talk anything about New Yorkers. It's a terrible, miserable campaign. But why did he do that? That's kind of weird, right? I mean, if you're trying to get votes, you should. No, because the old school way of winning elections was do the entire campaign as a giant ad to donors. So you just constantly are like, oh, remember, I'm not gonna raise taxes for any rich people. Remember, nothing's gonna change, even though everybody's like, give us change. They run those kind of campaigns because the candidate in the old days was just a person who was trying to collect as much money from wealthy people, PACs, corporations, foreign governments as possible. And then they would use that money to buy ads, and they would blanket the airwaves with ads. And they'd be like, okay, Mamdani is a Muslim, Marxist, trans, straight person, whatever, right? Smear, 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 and Cuomo did that exact playbook. Just run a campaign completely for the donors, and then take their $40 million they spent against Mamdani. The Israeli lobby did. 40 million, okay? So they're like, all right, good, we got this, okay? Yeah, we collected all the donor cash, spent it all on ads. Ha, you Muslim, right? And it didn't work. So far, it looks like it's not going to work, right? And so he doesn't know how to run any other kind of campaign. That's all he knows. Guys, so there was a lot of talk in New York back when Mario Cuomo, his father, was running against Ed Koch. Ed Koch was gay, but he was not out at that time. And there were rumors that he was gay. And of course, back in the 1970s, that hurt a lot in politics. And so someone on Cuomo's team, which was rumored to be Andrew Cuomo, his elder son, started putting up flyers in New York, vote for Cuomo, not the homo. So this is something that, I mean, that was from the Mario Cuomo campaign. It's not confirmed that it was Andrew Cuomo, but that has been a rumor in New York for as long as I've been around, okay? So here we are, that's the beginning of his career. At the end of his career, Muslim, yeah, you probably like 9/11. It's so obvious. It's pathetic, really. What are you gonna do for New Yorkers? He didn't even bother thinking about it. All right, somebody chat GPT what we would do for stupid voters if we ever cared about them. So I can't, I want Mamdani to win, not because I'm the biggest fan of his policies, we've been through that a million times, but because at least he's fighting for change, and he's fighting for the average guy and his actual voters and the people of New York City. So, and I hope that the polling is right, not just on his victory, but the fact that he is winning more Jewish votes than any of the other candidates, and has about 2/3 of young Jewish voters under the age of 45. So that's young and middle-aged. So if that happens and Jewish Americans give a resounding FU to the establishment and say, no, we're not gonna buy into your bigoted smears against Muslims, and we're not gonna demand that he serve Israel. We live in New York. We're gonna demand that he serves New York. Cuomo never has, and so at this point, I can't wait for the status quo to be shaken up. And I want to say just one last thing here from one of our members, because I thought that they made a really good point. And by the way, as I'm getting that, Dirge said, okay, here's at tyt.com, you could join there as well. There are big fears that Mamdani actually serves the people. The rest of the country might get a taste for it and demand the same out of their candidates. So I think that's even more than Israel, even more than the rich not wanting to pay 2% more, even more than free buses, God forbid, right? That's the thing that drives the establishment the most crazy. And if you're a Democrat, I'm gonna hurt your feelings a little bit here. If you're a young Turk viewer, you already know this. But I mean, why was Barack Obama so against Bernie Sanders? Because it looked like Bernie Sanders might actually try to do something. He might actually try that change thing that was promised earlier. And no one fought against Bernie Sanders more than Barack Obama. Because if Bernie got something done, it would have meant that Obama could have gotten something done. And that would be really embarrassing and hurt his legacy. So if Mamdani actually wins and actually gets things done that New Yorkers love, all of the corporate Republicans and Democrats will be humiliated, and the game will be further clarified. You see, guys, it's theater. They're not even trying to get anything passed. The minute you have one person on the left or the right that's actually trying, it makes all the difference. And that's what they don't want you to find out most of all.
Yeah. Now, just one final point on this campaign that Cuomo and all of these associated super PACs are running. There's two elements here. It's a campaign of distraction, and again on the policy thing, he doesn't run on policy, he just runs on attacking Mamdani or other things that he wants you to worry about. And just for context, he has spent time, Cenk, spending more time talking about your nephew on the trail and in debates than on policy. And with all of these millions of dollars at their disposal, this is how they're spending it. I looked into the New York political transparency portal and saw that just the other day, they issued a new ad buy, this Save Our City PAC or some associated Cuomo PAC, $650,000 of a clip of your nephew. No policy, no, hey, I'm gonna work on transportation, no, I'm gonna work on housing, I'm gonna work on fixing the cost of groceries. No. Cenk Uger's nephew is an issue that New Yorkers need to care about. It's a campaign of distraction, but also division. As we talked about last night, there's a group pretending that they represent Black New Yorkers. It's two people who don't live in New York and who work with AIPAC. And they want you to think that if you are Black or if you are Jewish or if you are Catholic or whatever, Mamdani does not care about you. And that's why they hate class-based populist policies, because it impacts everyone, regardless of who they are. That's why the elites want to focus on identity politics, because it's easier to distract, it's easier to divide people based on these immutable characteristics than it is to support something proactively that helps everyone. So it's a campaign of distraction and it's a campaign of division.
Yeah, and it's the same old garbage that they always do. Guilt by association, smear by proxy. How many times have you seen this hatchet job? And that's all Cuomo has is old, outdated, dull hatchets. Ironically, all he did was put them in his own back. Because when, last thing, guys, this is really important. Why did Mamdani get such a big lead? Because the entire media made a giant mistake. They hated him, and you saw it in the debates where every moderator would ask, why won't you serve Israel? Go to Israel, you gotta serve it, God damn it, why won't you serve Israel? As if like that was a prerequisite for running New York. So, but they made a giant mistake because they put a huge spotlight on him. Once you put a spotlight on a race, then we're in business because we have the more popular policies and we actually wanna serve the average voter. Whereas the establishment never, ever on the Democratic or Republican side wants to serve the average guy. So then what do they have left? Jordan's right. His whole thing at the end was not, hey, I'm gonna help you with your rent or with out of control prices in New York, but I hate Hassan Piker more. How does that help the average guy in New York? No, that's running an old school, dumb ass campaign and think you could just buy the election with your dirty, corrupt donors. Well, let's hope tonight that it's a very sad day for you and that all of your billionaire donors cry into their tears. We couldn't buy one election. We're used to buying every election, but we couldn't buy one. I'm so sorry, Israel. I'm so sorry we couldn't deliver for you my real homeland. God, please let me into that party, to be a fly on that wall, to see them all cry about how they couldn't buy one election. Oh, please, New York, do the right thing here. Let's get this right result and make the establishment cry. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT. Michael Cotavelli writes in on Super Chat. Just a reminder that as Governor Cuomo had the IDC and Independent Democratic Caucus handing the state legislature to Republicans, even with the Dems having the majority. Michael, that's a great reminder. Cuomo created a group, a splinter Democratic group, just so he could hand over the majority to the Republicans in the legislature. Now, why on God's green earth would you do that if you're such a great Democrat? Because he didn't want to pass any legislation and he needed an excuse. His donors were like, no, you are not to serve the voters. And he's like, oh yes, absolutely, sir. Yeah, right away, sir. He's like, okay, let's create a splinter group so it'll seem like we have no power. What a traitor he is to the voters. Okay, and by the way, he set up a corruption commission. The commission decided that Andrew Cuomo was the guilty party. He immediately shut it down. But was that a giant focus of the campaign? Did mainstream media ask about it in every debate? Well, how about your corruption panel that you shut down because they found out you're guilty? Now, you won't go to Israel. He won't go to Israel. He won't kiss Israeli ass. That's the main thing mainstream media cared about. All right, Rose Turner in YouTube member section says, I'm not gonna lie, a Hobbit home would be really nice for a lot of people right now. Very comfortable too. And I haven't been in one, I don't know, maybe it might work out. Well, now we got no homes, so I hear you. Disrupt Daily says, I say let's let them waste their money just like Musk did in Michigan. I guess Musk didn't learn his lesson. By the way, Musk is such a child. He's like, mom dummy. Hey, speaking of dummies, I thought you said you were gonna cut the Pentagon. Instead, you added 150 billion to the Pentagon, and look at that, maybe some contracts for your own companies. Oh, interesting. Oh, Mr. Genius sucking off the teat of the American people. That's who Elon Musk is. Dana Booker. Now when my partner mildly inconveniences me or annoys me, I call it anti-Semitic. LOL, that word literally lost its meaning. Shame. Dana, you're funny, I appreciate it. And tyt.com/join. No, well, that's true. You can join through that, but at tyt.com membership section, Michael Prestano writes in, can I just say that I'm deeply amused that TYT figured out the only way to keep Jenks' comments brief was to come up with an entire mini segment for him. Not funny. Okay, I'm kidding. Yes, that's literally why we came up with it. Okay, Jenks Left Tri-Saber Fury says, let's hope this triggers a lot more Mamdani-like candidates everywhere. Yes, and by the way, in Kansas, a populist is gonna run a different campaign on different policies than Mamdani is. Although the idea is the same, look out for the average voter, lower housing prices, lower prices overall, higher wages, etc. But they should run ones that are, make sense in their community. K-Dragon Battling for Truth and Justice says, voted here in Seattle today. I always love the feeling when I get when I vote. For a second, I feel like I'm sticking a big middle finger up to all the elites that wouldn't like my vote. Yeah, I love that way of thinking. Yeah, you should think. I think the same way. Yeah, here, take this vote, see how you like it. So good, I like that a lot. Pessimistic Progressive says, oh no, Dick Cheney died. Somebody better check on Kamala. She just lost her biggest endorsement from 2028. Kinda. Okay, we'll be right back.
We spend a lot of money on defense, and if that just keeps going, we're essentially gonna bankrupt the country.
All right, if back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. We have really important stories coming up next. But first, real quick on chapter. You guys know Medicare enrollment has started and it goes through December 7th. So if you're on Medicare or your parents or anyone you know is on Medicare, guys, please do this 20-minute call. It could save you on average $1,100, and people have started emailing in and telling us that they have in fact saved that much money. And a lot of the plans change, so you gotta check every year. So if you're gonna bother checking, you might as well get somebody who's independent to find out if your plan is the best or if there's a better plan where you save money. So 707 TYT help, 707 TYT help. It's under 20 minutes, it's free, and you can save, well, on average, $1,100 a year. All right, Jordan.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney died today at the age of 84. And unsurprisingly, the mainstream media today was flooded with whitewashed accounts of Cheney's legacy and outright praise for him. Before we correct the record on who Dick Cheney really was, Cenk, your 2 cents?
So you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead. Yeah, I'm definitely going to violate that in a minute. I have some strong thoughts about this, but I also want to go over his record and think about what's the very worst thing he did. Because boy, I mean, that list is thick with some of the worst crimes in American history. All right, let's find out more.
Well, Cheney reportedly died from complications from pneumonia and cardiac and vascular disease. He's probably best known for being the shadow president to George W. Bush. And for years, he was dubbed Darth Vader for being such a hungry neocon. He's one of the men who lied about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction in order to push America into a war that killed hundreds of thousands of people after 9/11. The Bush-Cheney administration's subsequent war on terror involved everything from warrantless mass wiretapping of American citizens to torture of suspects in US custody who'd never been charged, with anything to the use of unmanned drones to extrajudicially kill people sitting at cafes in places like Pakistan and Yemen based on nothing more than some CIA analysts' unproven suspicion that they were involved with terrorism. He was a vocal cheerleader for torture, which he called, quote, enhanced interrogation. In 2010, he told ABC's Jonathan Karl, "I was a big supporter of waterboarding." Cheney was also instrumental in carrying out the cluster bombing, invasion, and long-term occupation of Afghanistan. By some accounts, the wars he pushed us into ended up killing millions of people, both directly and indirectly. Here's a Washington Post headline from 2023. Post 9/11 wars have contributed to some 4.5 million deaths, report suggests. That includes more than 7,000 American troops that were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. The study also found that the wars displaced over 38 million people. Dick Cheney's approval rating when he left office was 13%, but he was proud of his legacy nonetheless, and even liked that people called him Darth Vader. When a Wall Street Journal reporter visited Wyoming to interview Cheney in 2015, the former vice president showed off his trailer hitch modeled after the supreme commander of the Imperial Fleet. Darth Vader, Cheney said, "I'm rather proud of that." But despite Cheney's documented history of being a war criminal, legacy reporters and establishment politicians lined up today to launder his reputation. Here's how the New York Times described him: a consummate Washington insider. Mr. Cheney was an architect and executor of President Bush's major initiatives, deploying military power to advance the cause of democracy abroad, championing tax cuts and a robust economy at home, and strengthening the powers of a presidency that, as both men saw it, had been unjustifiably restrained by Congress and the courts in the aftermath of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. There's the New York Times parroting the lie that Cheney just wanted to, quote, advance the cause of democracy abroad. They also said that he helped resolve several foreign problems for H.W. Bush. And instead of talking about his real legacy, they recounted his Friday nights at football games and root beer stands as a teenager. At no point did they mention allegations of war crimes, except in this one sentence about the 2024 election, during which Cheney famously endorsed Kamala Harris over Trump. Mr. Cheney and Liz Cheney were engulfed by a parade of Democratic well-wishers, many of whom had once called the former vice president a war criminal. Morning Joe also joined in on the whitewashing and praised him for opposing Donald Trump. Here's Joe Scarborough.
One of these Republicans, that we're seen as a defender of democracy when so many others lost their way. Dick Cheney kept his bearings after January the 6th, always kept his bearings when it came to democratic norms, and he was on the right side. I think most, certainly Republicans from my era, would believe, and I think we all should be grateful to him for that.
Later in the show, author and historian John Meacham called Cheney a remarkable human figure. And we don't make them like this anymore, Meacham said, implying that this is a bad thing. ABC reporter John Carl tweeted, Dick Cheney was a true patriot. On one of the most controversial and consequential political figures of our time, Bill Clinton wrote, throughout his long career in public service, Dick Cheney was guided by a deep belief that he was doing what was right for America. Though we often disagreed, I always respected his dedication to our country and his unwavering sense of duty. My thoughts are with Lynn and the Cheney family. And it goes on, but Cenk, we're getting reports now that Dick Cheney is actually being greeted as a liberator at the gates of hell.
Okay, I'm not laughing, not laughing. They threw roses at his feet. They literally said that the Iraqis would throw roses at our feet, and that it would only cost 1.7 billion. It cost at least 1,000 times that. Okay, so Dick Cheney, obviously a gigantic liar, and that's part of the reason the establishment loved him. So this is the same treatment that Henry Kissinger got, another war criminal. And so both Democrats and Republicans were like, oh, Henry Kissinger, way to murder all those Cambodians and the Vietnamese. Oh God, you're so great. Oh, but we all knew him. He's so good on the cocktail circuit. You know, Henry Kissinger was actually really funny. Like when we were eating pigs in a blanket and thinking about how many Cambodians he murdered. Oh God, he's such a good guy. And that's how they think about Dick Cheney. To be fair, by the way, the Washington Post did a pretty good obit on Cheney that had all of his downsides. So we always give credit where credit is due, but not earned by the rest of the mainstream media. So now this is the toughest question of all. What is the worst thing about Dick Cheney? This is the thing we probably should have done the poll on today. But go crazy if you want on a live chat poll. But I don't know how you're gonna fit all these things. So I'm gonna do them real quick. Jordan read a lot of them to you with details. So Iraq war, as disastrous as it gets, 5,000 Americans dead because of Dick Cheney, let alone the hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis, let alone the trillions of dollars wasted, etc. But hey, to be fair, Israel's #1 enemy was wiped out. So that was really good for America anyway. But by the way, that's another reason why the establishment loves Dick Cheney, because he's a hardcore Zionist. And they're like, oh, Zionist, all sins are forgiven. Oh, you're for torture, who cares as long as you're a Zionist? So by the way, Dick Cheney, not Jewish, but a Zionist, giant difference. It isn't about religion, it's about like a nationalistic zeal towards one foreign government, usually because the politicians have been bribed, but for whatever reason. Okay, so Iraq war, #2, torture, obviously. #3, warrantless wiretapping. If we just stop right there, he'd already be one of the worst political figures of our lifetime. #4, Gitmo, he tried to get rid of habeas corpus. That is the foundation of Western civilization. He came out against Donald Trump, but what is Donald Trump doing? From time to time, he attacks habeas corpus. And who started that trend? Dick Cheney started that trend. #5, Halliburton. He gave no bid contracts, despised capitalism. The minute the war started, all he did was no bid contracts to all of his friends, including, oh, what a surprise, billions of dollars to the company he used to be the CEO of, and got a $34 million bribe, golden parachute, when he left. And they knew he was gonna be vice president. They're like, here's $34 million. And in return, he gave them billions of dollars, and no other company was allowed to compete for that throughout the entire 8 years they were in office. Absurd. Well, what a corrupt, terrible person. That's why the establishment loves him. As Jordan pointed out, #6, left office with a 13% approval rating. I think at one point he dipped to 9%. The people running Kamala Harris's campaign were maybe a collection of the single dumbest Democrats in the entire country. If you tried to find anybody in the country that was dumber than the people who ran Kamala Harris's campaign, you couldn't do it. They're like, oh, the most unpopular politician of our lifetimes, maybe in history, in the single digits. Why don't you go bear hug him and tell everyone how much you love Dick Cheney? Said the morons, the epic clowns who ran Kamala Harris's campaign. Anyway, #7, shot his friend in the face. We forget that. Like, he's done so many evil things. We're like, well, that was probably a mistake. So I guess we'll give him a pass on that one. But yeah, he shot his friend in the face with a shotgun, because that's Dick Cheney for you. And so, look, that's a murderer's row of disgusting, terrible things that Darth Vader did. And he loved it. He loved being Darth Vader, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm evil. And I get it. I think he was actually closer to the Penguin, right? Let's go to Iraq. They will be greeted as liberators. We don't need a plan. Okay, so now, of course, all of Washington's like, oh, our beloved war criminal. He was such a good man. He murdered brown people in other countries, so that doesn't count at all. But he gave a lot of us bribes and contracts and no bid this and no bid that. And God, we loved his corruption. So go ahead, New York Times, go ahead, CNN, go kiss his ass. He's still sitting there, alive or dead, at around a 9% approval rating. So go tell 90% of the country, you're wrong. The big, powerful elite that spy in on you and torture people and take away all their rights, that's the good guy. All right, then I wonder how mainstream media lost its credibility. That's how.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where this is somebody who lived a long life, got everything they wanted, and never faced any repercussions. You mentioned Kissinger, similar case there. It's frustrating that we see people like this time and time again live long lives while, just to compare it to a domestic issue of gun violence. How many kids are killed every year as a result of gun violence, and how many people like Dick Cheney are obstacles in trying to mitigate, if not eliminate, that problem? And I don't know. I don't know how to think about it. I'm not with the civility police thinking that you shouldn't speak ill of the dead. No, he did this. That's his legacy. His legacy is a terrible one. But the problem with Washington is that it's full of people who are really into the mingling, the symbiotic relationships for them to get ahead, or some professional exchange where you get media appearances or cushy gigs. They all go to the same cocktail parties, and it doesn't matter that this guy helped lie our way into Afghanistan and Iraq, who the death tolls are at the very least in the hundreds of thousands. Doesn't matter that people's lives are upended around the world. It doesn't matter that he did it at the behest of oil companies in which he had a direct financial stake. It doesn't matter that he threw his own daughter under the bus for his vice presidential prospects. None of it. He was nice. He was a real Washington good old boy. When you have media like that, I don't know how you expect anything to change, and you shouldn't. And that's why, again, there's a small element of this where it's important to invest in and support independent outlets, because they're not gonna mislead you. They're not gonna do this whitewashing of a terrible warmonger's legacy in days like this.
Yeah, I forgot that one. Number 8, when his other daughter was gay, and when they asked him, he thought it might hurt the electoral chances of Liz Cheney and maybe himself, and he threw his own daughter under the bus and said she should not have the same rights as straight people. Oh, what a disgusting person. And the fact that Washington doesn't call him disgusting shows you who they really are. That they value their own personal relationships with these horrific figures way more than they value you. And last thing I'm gonna say on it is, Jonathan Karl said, oh, what a true patriot he was. No, he wasn't. Dick Cheney hated the idea of America. That's why he attacked habeas corpus. And they give him all this credit because, he was against what happened on January 6th when Donald Trump seemed to be refusing to step down. Who was in favor of more presidential authority? Dick Cheney was. He's the one that opened that door. He's like, the president should be allowed to do whatever he wants. Torture, getting rid of constitutional rights, getting rid of foundational principles of Western civilization. That's not a patriot. That's a guy who doesn't believe in this country. We don't do torture here, and we're not supposed to spy in on our own citizens. But Dick Cheney never believed in America. He wanted a darker, more sinister version of America. And that's the real reason why I couldn't stand him. So, no, Washington, no. These people are not patriots. They're the exact opposite. And by the way, so are you, because you never actually fight the powerful. You help the powerful lie to us. You aid and abet their war crimes. And you're the people who are charged with, who your job is to do the cover up for all the crimes of the powerful, like Dick Cheney. So, again, we're fair. Washington Post had a good obit. You could read that one about Dick Cheney, had all of the complexity. Everything else was trash. just ass kissing of the powerful, which seems to be mainstream media's top job. Okay, we got to take a break here. When we come back, the Israelis arrest a moral general who outed sexual assault by the IDF. They're like, how dare you? So now, of course, they're going to try to punish her. We'll tell you about that when we return.
Exaggerations.
Back on TYT. Textan says, we should set up a GoFundMe to pay for Irish dancers to perform on Cheney's grave in perpetuity, like JFK's eternal flame at Arlington. I'm sure Irish dancers need fulfilling work just like everyone else. Okay, all right, look, it's definitely a little funny, but guys, in all seriousness, you have to set the record straight on who Dick Cheney was, and now we move on, right? So we don't need to go and have dance on his grave and all that stuff, okay? So he had family, although he betrayed them too. But anyways, so I'm sure they're in pain over it. We've said our piece. We're done with Dick Cheney. And don't get me wrong, when he comes up in the news organically, we're going to be 100% honest about what he did, whether he's alive or dead. But anyways, okay. Jeremy Dad Joke Dragon said, hi, Cenk. My wife laughed out loud at your mom Joke Dragon shout out yesterday. Thanks for making our anniversary all the more special. Much love, everyone. Well, happy to be a part of it, guys. That's amazing that we were a part of it. So both Dad and Mom Joke Dragon, happy anniversary one more time. Don Dada Dragon, again, with another comment that I love. Oh my God, what a joyous day before my birthday. Mom Donnie's about to waste $40 million of AIPAC's blood money. Dick Cheney, the head neocon, died. I got off early at work and I have weed and wings waiting at home. I hope my happiness spreads to your life too. First of all, it already has, because that's like an awesome comment. Every part of an awesome comment is in there. Second of all, I mean, if you're going to have the weed and the wings while we're doing Operation Joy, there's some chance you're going to be in the running for the happiest man alive today. So let's root for the Mamdani win and see if we can get you there. Winter Scoop says, election coverage means Anna will be able to get more than 30 seconds of ideas to the viewers. Now, I assume you mean on CNN as opposed to here, but yes, Anna's going to be on tonight, 8:30 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern on CNN doing election coverage with Charlemagne the God, among others. How dare you give me hope has written in. Hello, TYT fam. I'm back. In late September, I decided to take a break from the news. I also took a trip to Canada mid-October, so the break turned into nearly 6 weeks away from daily news. It's been wonderful, especially the first few weeks. I've been gradually adding news to my media intake, and today's my first day back with you guys. I can't tell you how I missed you. And then a little heart emoji. Well, heart emoji right back at you. We missed you too. Good to have you back. Aww. Yeah, I agree. Wow. This is a fun community. Octo Squiddy says, quid pro Cuomo is a goober. First of all, I don't know why I find that so funny, but I do. But quid pro Cuomo, I'd never heard that before. That's really good. Should have been using that the whole time. Sylvia Dragon says, avowed self-hating Jew here. Been having that aspersion cast my way since my Sunday school days in childhood. Get some new material. Sylvia Dragon, love having you here. Okay. You're home here now. Pop Dragon 75 says, as a former New Yorker, I cannot wait for Zoran to win. Honestly, it saddens me how we were conditioned to hate Muslims in this country. Well, thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. We'll be back. back on TYT. Jake Jordan, Kyle Matlock. Matlock's on the case. We're going to solve it. And Jeffrey James. You guys are awesome for signing up and for being part of the TYT community. We appreciate you guys so much. Everybody hit the join button if you can. By the way, that beautiful subscribe button and ringing the bell and all that stuff, free, and also helps the show. We appreciate you guys. I'm wearing my Rebel Alliance shirt today. This is at shoptyt.com. All right, I got to tell you about Noble Mobile. You guys saw we started yesterday. So this is the carrier that's going to save you a lot of money. My bill with Verizon was over $100. I switched to Noble Mobile. Boom, $50 a month. I mean, that's on that alone. You got to go. You got to sign up with this. So honestly, it's T-Mobile service. So I haven't lost any service at all anywhere, right? So and it takes about 5 minutes to switch. Go.tyt.com/switch. Go.tyt.com/switch. Okay, this is Andrew Yang's new company, and so you're going to save a lot of money. And the last thing is, on top of the fact that it's only $50 a month, and you get the same exact service, same phone, same everything, right? Is if you use your data less, they give you money at the end of the month, extra money at the end of the month. Touchgrass and Andrew Yang will pay you. Go.tyt.com/switch. Okay, Jordan, what's next?
A top military lawyer in Israel is now in custody for leaking horrific footage of Israeli soldiers abusing a Palestinian detainee. Cenk, before we get into the harrowing details, what do you make of this story?
Well, I was told that Hamas is the worst thing that you could possibly imagine because they did sexual assault on October 7th. And I agree, that's terrible. And here is the IDF doing sexual assault. So I'm sure that the Israelis will find it just as objectionable. In fact, since it's their own, they'll find it even more objectionable, right? Right? No, of course, let's find out how they're going to punish the person who told you.
Well, viewers, be warned, this story is extremely graphic. But that aside, let's explain what's happening in Israel. In 2024, a video of IDF soldiers seemingly abusing a Palestinian detainee sparked international outrage. The incident took place at the Stai Taiman military facility. An anonymous IDF reservist who served there stated, I woke up in Stai Taiman and simply saw how an Abu Ghraib-like thing was taking shape. You see normal, pretty ordinary people reaching a point where they abuse people for their own amusement, not even for an interrogation or anything. In a leaked video, a blindfolded Palestinian detainee is surrounded by a group of soldiers who arrange themselves around the detainee so their actions cannot be seen by surveillance footage. But while we can't see exactly what's happening in the footage, we do know what happened next. The detainee was severely ill when he arrived at a hospital and required surgery for a rectal perforation, according to a person who viewed the medical file and spoke on the condition of anonymity. The detainee also had signs of trauma to the chest and the abdomen, the person said. The detainee's injuries, including several broken ribs, were life-threatening. An anonymous medical staffer who witnessed the detainee stated, "It was pretty horrifying. It's just setting the bar so low that I don't know how we can deteriorate more morally. I was aware things like that could happen, but I've never witnessed anything like that." The detainee was treated at a civilian hospital, and the case came to light because the hospital staff spoke out about what they saw. Worse still, according to Drop Site News, a classified Israeli military order shows the man Israeli soldiers brutally raped on camera for 15 minutes was never charged with any crime. For months, pro-Israel advocates claimed he was an elite Hamas fighter who participated in October 7th to justify the atrocity. The leaked document confirms he was a civilian, one of 1,700 Gazans being held without charge and freed from Israel's torture sites in the recent exchange on October 13th, 2025. Under the deal, Israel had only agreed to free 1,700 Palestinians from Gaza who had not been charged with any crime. Last year, 5 of the Israeli reservists who abused the detainee were indicted on charges of assaulting a prisoner. Their trial is still ongoing. But the charges sparked outrage in Israel. At one point, furious right-wing Israelis even stormed that facility. They were upset at the Israeli government for prosecuting their country's own soldiers. Here's one horrific example of what the discourse looked like in Israel. In a heated exchange in Israel's parliament, one lawmaker asked another, to insert a stick in a person's rectum, is that legitimate? Yes, replied Hanok Milwitsky, a member of Likud. If he is a nukba, everything is legitimate to do to him. Everything. Around that same time, Bezalel Smotrich, Israel's finance minister, stated that the soldiers should be treated like heroes, not villains. Fast forward to this year. On Friday, Major General Yafat Tomer Yerusalem officially stepped down as Israel's most senior official overseeing military justice. In her resignation letter, she revealed that she leaked the video of the IDF soldiers abusing the detainee. As the person standing at the head of the military prosecution, and out of a sense of deep responsibility to the military, to the unit, and my soldiers, I approved releasing the material to the media in an effort to thwart the false propaganda against law enforcement in the military. Unfortunately, the basic understanding that there are acts that must not be committed, even against the most despicable of detainees, no longer convinces everyone. And she has since been detained by the Israeli government on charges of obstruction of justice, fraud, and abuse of office. Once again, Israeli society is debating what happened to the detainee. On Friday, Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, wrote on X in a post that was auto-translated by the platform, I have decided that Chief Military Prosecutor Yafat Tomer Yerusalem will not return to her position. I will ensure that justice is fully served against anyone who lent a hand to the blood libel against IDF soldiers in the Stay Diamond affair. As for Israel's leader, Netanyahu has called the leaking of the video perhaps the most severe public relations attack on Israel since its founding. Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's national security minister, referred to the leaked footage as a fabricated rape video. He's also bragging about the nightmarish conditions in Israeli prisons. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers who is accused of raping the detainee is now showing his face and openly asking the citizens of Israel to support him. Cenk, what do you make of this story?
Yeah, as disastrous as it gets, and unfortunately telling of the current state of the Israeli government, but also the Israeli population. So let's talk about all of it. First of all, the cowards in the IDF beat him for 15 minutes and raped him while he was shackled and bound. So they're very tough when they have tanks and jets and 2,000-pound bombs that we all paid for. They're very tough as they're murdering innocent civilians and raping them. But I'm sure that they think that they're like the world's greatest soldiers. The other guy's side doesn't even have any weapons. You keep arresting people for throwing rocks. They arrested a 16-year-old American boy for looking at someone throwing a rock. Look, oh, see, he was looking, we're so scared, right? But the minute they have someone bound and shackled, they rape them. Because the IDF are sick terrorists. So this is one example of it, but look at what they just did to Gaza. One of the worst genocides and ethnic cleansing of our lifetimes, all to steal half of it, 53%, now occupied by Israel. So the terrorists killed and terrorized all those people, and then apparently raped some of the civilians so that they could steal more land. So, I mean, look at them. You're seeing all the quotes. Those are Israeli cabinet members and Knesset members. So that disgusting Israel Katz talking about how it's blood libel. So wait, let me get this right. The original blood libel was this absurd thing that they used to charge Jews with in Europe, where they would say, oh, they're killing Christian children and drinking their blood. Terrible, disgusting, not remotely true, obviously made up as a way to gin up hatred towards Jews, which leads to pogroms and Holocaust, etc. So that's something that should be sacred, right? And you shouldn't just throw that around willy-nilly as a charge. Now, does this have anything to do with children or drinking their blood? No, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with rogue terrorist rapists. I mean, if they're not one of you and you're not in condoning the rape of innocent civilians, then you would obviously denounce the person. Watch, I denounce him. I denounce Hamas, who did something similar. I denounce what Hamas did on October 7th. I denounce that Israel has done 75 October 7th. Nope, in American media and American politics, they work for Israel, so no, not the same, not the same. One October 7th, way worse than 75 October 7th, because the people who were killed and raped are just Palestinians. That's how our media treats them. They're just Arabs and Muslims. Who cares about them, right? Now back to Israel. The Israeli government's like, oh, the guys who raped Palestinians? Yes, we must protect them. The person who revealed the rape? Oh, you gotta punish her. We found a moral, decent person in the IDF. They don't belong. They don't belong. Make sure you get rid of them and arrest them and punish them for trying to stop the rapist inside the IDF. Okay, so those are all facts, and they have nothing to do with blood libel. Nothing, okay? Blood libel isn't about rape, it's not about soldiers, it's not about grown people. It's just a made up thing that was horrific back in the day. But now, Israel's like, let's callously use all the things that were done to us or done to Jewish people overall, and then we'll hide behind those. We'll use them as shields, and that way we can rape the Palestinians and we can murder their children, 20,000 of them, and get away with it because we'll just say, oh, wait a minute, hold on. She's an Israeli general. So a Jewish Israeli is an anti-Semite who did the blood libel trope? Now she's an anti-Semite. Okay, well, you see, it's just garbage. The word anti-Semite, blood libel, all those things, trope, have been weaponized by the Israelis, and they hide behind them like cowards that they are. They're government officials, and they go, oh, yeah, it's a good way to ruin everyone. And they're so deluded and so insane that they're like, oh, we've been using it against Americans. Any American who opposes Israel, we crush them. We destroy their lives. We call you say, oh, he hates Jews. I have to fire him. Make sure he never earns a living. Everyone hate this guy, right? That works so well. We just called all the Americans anti-Semites, the right, left, and we got them on, he's crushed them, right? Oh, now Israelis have a conscience. By the way, the original guy who turned these guys in was a doctor. The doctor couldn't believe the IDF had done that. He's an Israeli, he's Jewish. And he was like, what? He's got knife wounds, you broke his ribs, he was shackled and tortured. By the way, you think this is a lone case? No way. When Israel returned its hostages in the recent ceasefire deal, they returned a lot of the dead hostages, right? And prisoners, most of them are civilians that have never been charged with anything. Israel just swoops up civilians, goes, oh, I want 20 of my soldiers back, so I kidnapped 1,000, 2,000 of your civilians. Oh, by the way, I've been torturing them and raping them the entire time. Okay, but here they are. And as they were returning them, they were returned bound and shackled and tortured to death. So that's what the IDF does. And then they go, the whole world is anti-Semitic. There's no reason why you would object to torture or rape unless you hated Jews. And think about how much they smear other Jewish people by doing that. They're basically saying, if you love Jewish people, you would be pro-torture and rape. That is a disgusting thing to say. I don't know anything more anti-Semitic than that. I mean, how's that for irony? So all these disgusting terrorist cabinet members in the Israeli cabinet and in their Knesset, all smearing other Jews for their own nationalistic grotesqueries. All right, so last thing is about the civilians, about the Israeli population, okay? So look, the IDF is clearly terrorist, their government is clearly terrorist and fascist. So then the question is, how about the people? Are they being held at gunpoint by this evil fascist government? A majority of Israelis say that Israel should keep going in Gaza. They haven't killed enough Palestinians. And now this guy is fundraising, the rapist. He's like, oh, we should all punish the one decent person we found in the IDF. Punish the general who's a good person. Give me money because I rape Palestinian civilians. So Israel, what are you gonna do? My guess is they're gonna let him go and they're gonna punish her. They're gonna let all of them go and they're gonna punish her. Their kangaroo courts and military courts find the IDF soldiers innocent 99% of the time. You know why? Because they're not real courts. They're like, oh, you murdered and tortured and raped Palestinians. Congratulations. That makes you a model soldier in the IDF. Those are the exact kind of terrorists we're looking for. So they never get punished. They get rewarded for their terrorism. So we're sending tens of billions of dollars to a terrorist state, and their actions are clear. We didn't tell them to rape the Palestinians, they did. We didn't tell them to let go the rapist and punish the person who turned them in. That's what Israel's doing right now. So look, at some point they're gonna have an election and we're gonna find out. Look, I'm never ever going to be for anything physical, violent, in any way towards any civilians, no matter how awful their point of view is. But right now, the majority of the Israeli population is backing terrorism and genocide. And I hope to God, I think that they could be better. They were better before. They're human beings just like the rest of us. They have to snap out of this hypnotic trance that they've put themselves in. They're gorging on terrorism. It happens, it moves from country to country. The Germans did it, the Turks did it, now the Israelis are doing it. And I hope that if you love Israel, that you could find a way to get them out of this. Because if you don't snap them out of this trance that they're in, they're gonna continue to be hated, and rightly so, as one of the most evil nations on earth. And it's not really that close. Like, yeah, sure, it's close to the North Koreans and a couple other nations, but really, I mean, no one's killed more journalists, no one's killed more human rights workers, no one's killed more civilians, no one has a worse civilian kill ratio. No one, like others I get, might rape their prisoners, but they usually aren't proud of it. Okay, what has Israel become? And are you proud of it? Are you really proud of this? If you say you're still proud of this, there's something wrong with you. And you gotta look in the mirror and go to a therapist and figure it out. Because this is disgusting no matter what country does it. And if you say no, Israel should get to do it and you shouldn't be allowed to criticize them, okay, you're a terrible person. Okay, I thought that was clear enough. Good news, the overwhelming majority of you in the audience are not that person. You're the ones trying to fight back against the genocide, and we love you for it. And for the few stragglers left, they're mainly corrupt. And they're like, oh yeah, but billionaires are paying me. So that's why I love this stuff and I cover it up and I make the American voters pay for it. Okay, and those are the bad guys and we're gonna keep on pointing them out going forward. All right, we're way out of time. Jordan, you're awesome, brother. Thank you for participating, appreciate it. And when we come back, David Hogg goes after Scott Jennings, that should be interesting. And then civil war continues. Now Douglas Murray has attacked Tucker Carlson. And of course, his main question is, have you been there? We'll be back.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Rich and powerful men abusing, assaulting, and abandoning young women. These rich and powerful men donate to the politicians in Washington, D.C., play golf with the elites in Washington, D.C. They are foreign leaders who we don't want to offend. They interact with our intelligence agencies that we don't want to disobey. There is something rotten in Washington.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
All those congressmen you just saw there are on the record as protecting the child rapists who were clients of Epstein. They have not prosecuted a single person outside of Epstein and Maxwell.
Yep.
Not one.
Is Trump engaging in this cover-up because he's in the Epstein files?
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
So as the government keeps telling us, yeah, there's other people. Yeah, they raped those girls. So what? We're gonna cover up for them. But why are you guys so mad?
A nation that chooses impunity for the rich and the powerful at the expense of our children is a nation that has lost. lost its moral purpose. Are you on the side of the people? Are you on the side of America's children? Or are you on the side of the rich and powerful who've had their thumb on the scales and shafted Americans for decades?
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one. In a media landscape poisoned by corporate influence, only one show stands apart from the rest, The Young Turks. As the longest running daily news show on the internet, The Young Turks is an impactful voice of unfiltered truth, one you can trust to deliver the daily news with authenticity and honesty. For nearly 2 decades, TYT has been breaking the mold of media. We're not here to echo the powerful or the elite, we're here to challenge them. Our mission is to give you accurate news, fight the establishment, and cover stories that mainstream media keeps you in the dark about, which matter to your everyday life. We've remained a leader in online news because of our established credibility with an engaged audience looking for alternative media that represents the real concerns of everyday Americans. Listen to The Young Turks, a news show that only answers to you on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. A mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
Amazing.
Back on TYT, Jay Huger, Yasmin Aliyah Khan with you guys. Check out Yasmin on Rebel Headquarters too. And James the Philosopher, he just joined by hitting the join button on YouTube and wrote in, glad to be a new member and support TYT. Love you all. I'm born again progressive, grew up in the South. I was told nothing but crazy ultra conservative politics. Glad I divorced the Republican Party. Progress will continue. I'm glad it will. Well, James, great to have you here. So we appreciate you. It reminds me of a lot of things I wrote in my book, Justice is Coming. So it's beautiful to see that you were open-minded and open-hearted like that. All right, Yaz, what's next?
Yeah, I also love the idea of being a born-again progressive. That's kind of cool. So with that, let's get into some progressive news with our first story.
There's a lot to be learned from this race, not necessarily about policy, no other city is like New York City, but a lot about the power of listening. One of the things that Zoran did in this race is he went to voters and asked them, what do you want to see? People are tired of being lectured by men with Rolexes on CNN about affordability in this country. That's the real reason he is resonating right now.
While discussing Zohran Mamdani on CNN's Newsnight, former DNC Vice Chair David Hogg ripped into Scott Jennings for lecturing the audience on affordability while he sat there wearing a Rolex. So Cenk, I know you recently spoke with David Hogg. So what is your initial reaction to what he had to say? I know personally it was very satisfying to see someone read Scott Jennings like that.
Yeah, so look, I get it. Those guys are all rich. But it's a good dig because of the context. And so the context is there's a brother doing a great Gatsby themed party while cutting off SNAP benefits. So Yaz is gonna tell you more about that. And then I wanna talk about how Washington treats you because they really have disdain for you. So let's talk about it.
Well, as New Yorkers are heading to vote today to cast their ballots, hopefully for Zohran Mamdani, Jennings has a strong suspicion that Mamdani is actually going to win, which I think is fair because ever since his victory in the Democratic primary, Zohran Mamdani has been the clear favorite to win. Polls aggregated by the New York Times have Mamdani anywhere from 5 to 25 points ahead of his opponents, Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, and Andrew Cuomo, who has entered the race as an independent after losing in the Democratic primary. So in fact, the latest Quinnipiac poll saw Mamdani at 43%, Cuomo at 33%, and Sliwa at 14%. 6% are still undecided, so I'm not sure when they're planning on making a decision. But even though Jennings believes that Mamdani will win, he still has shown a lot of disdain for the fact that he is favored to win, and Hogg was not having any of it.
Look, he's probably going to win. I mean, it's a Democrat town, and they're going to elect a socialist to run the financial capital of the world. I mean, you gave him 300 grand. That's interesting. That's probably the only 300 non-Islamo-Marxist grand that he got. I saw Linda Sarsour today bragging about all the money that's coming from all over the world.
And so for their elections in New York.
Look.
And honestly, I think part of the reason he's so powerful is because people are tired of being lectured by men with Rolexes on CNN about affordability in this country. That's the real reason he is resonating right now. Because he has a clear message that actually says, this is what I plan to do. And the party, I don't think this is about going to the left or the right, to be honest with you. Do I agree with Zohran much more than a lot of other Democrats in our party? Certainly, but I think we need to meet voters where they're at in their districts. In some districts, that's going to be the more conservative.
But you want a socialist future for your party.
I want a future where everybody has health care and people can afford a good life.
All right, we're going to leave it there, everyone. Thank you very much.
Unbelievable. It's only on CNN could a top commentator say something like Mamdani had not Islamo-Marxist dollars, and then the panel just keeps going. I think David Hogg kind of reacted to it if you look at his face, but that is an unbelievable thing to just say on the air and get away with, and nobody says anything. But at the end of the day, Jennings is repeating the same talking points that most conservative and also corporate Democrats have whenever it comes to Zohran Mamdani, including bashing him for being a socialist who will run the financial capital of the world. And they say that as if it's like an ironic thing. And I guess that's better than Donald Trump, though, who corrects people whenever they call Mamdani a socialist because he's actually a communist, which is much scarier. And Trump wants you to be very scared of people like Zohran Mamdani. But props to David Hogg for laying out exactly what issues New Yorkers actually do care about the most and why Jennings needs to, just shut his butt up. Okay, so according to Partnership for New York City, in regards to affordability, 41.2% of respondents said that their number one hope for the city in 10 years from now is that it will be more affordable and accessible. 34.4% said that building more affordable housing was the number one action the city could take to make New York City more affordable. And 26.1% said that lowering or controlling rent and housing costs was the number one action the city could take to make it more affordable. And like David Hogg said, Mamdani laid out his plans very clearly and met people at their level. So Cenk, a few things stood out to me there. The idea that Scott Jennings wanted to bring up the idea that New Yorkers want to elect a socialist to run the financial capital of the world. So dumb. The thing is, that is exactly what is wrong with the Democratic Party. I know Scott Jennings doesn't speak for the Democratic Party, but a lot of Democrats do feel that way. That's why a lot of Democrats still have not endorsed Zohran Mamdani, despite his demonstrated popularity with the people. That's why so many of them have considered endorsing Andrew Cuomo, which is funny because he lost already. He already lost the primary. New Yorkers already told him that they didn't want him. And then he just said, you know what, I'm gonna keep pushing myself on you. And I know you guys covered in the first hour the fact that a lot of the worst people in the country right now have also gotten behind Andrew Cuomo. And what's interesting is that nobody, whether it's the corporate Dems or the Republicans, whoever is actually thinking about what the people of New York actually want. And something else that I've seen surrounding the narrative with Zohran Mamdani is that it's almost audacious for people to dare to dream for a better future. To dare to think that, if we put somebody like Zohran Mamdani in, obviously if and when he wins, he's going to have a very, very steep uphill climb trying to get anything done, because I imagine he's gonna have everybody trying to get in his way and stop him from doing the things that he actually wants to do for the city. But it's like, how dare you guys even dream? How dare you even try? Because this is the status quo. The best we can do is maintain it. That's the best and final offer. What are your thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, so I don't think that I missed when you said he should shut his butt up. Come on, that was fun. Okay, so two great lines in this segment. And David Hogg's, of course, about the guy with a Rolex on CNN lecturing about affordability. When he said it, I was like, damn. So nice job by David Hogg. So when Scott Jennings said he gave him $300,000, that Hogg did. That's not David Hogg's money. He runs a PAC called Leaders We Deserve. I interviewed him about that. That's what Yaz was referring to. You can check that out on YouTube. And I'm glad they did. And so for a couple of reasons. One, of course, I want the Israeli lobby to waste $40 million in that race and know that they are not invincible. It'll drive them crazy. And then I'm gonna collect the tears of Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro in my TYT mug. Oh, give me more, give me more, give me more. But mainly I care that he's for change. So I'm gonna come back to that in a second. But first, the Islamo-Marxist. Okay, so it's apparently our job to educate the good folks on television. There is no such thing as an Islamo-Marxist. Marxists are atheists. That is a core part of their beliefs. The Islamists are fundamentalist religious people. So they would never agree with the Marxists, and the Marxists would never agree with them. They have completely different philosophies, and the Marxists have been applied in terrible ways in the past, but overall it's just an economic model. You can get angry at it. I don't particularly agree with it. Not particularly, I don't agree with it at all. But I don't think it's the boogeyman that people are describing. The Islamic fundamentalists, like Jewish fundamentalists, Christian fundamentalists, etc., are problematic people. But of course, Zohran Mamdani is not a fundamentalist. He's not an Islamist. He's just Muslim. But since everyone on TV is racist, they just say, oh yeah, Islamist. And then nobody ever corrects him. Now, by the way, Nick Fuentes, bad guy, says bigoted things. And so when he says it about Jewish people, people get outraged, as they should, as they absolutely should. And when it is said about Mamdani by the top Republican contributor on CNN that he's an Islamist, he's said by other folks all over media and all the politicians, no one cares. There's not a call to cancel Scott Jennings and to make sure that no one ever talks to him, etc. Randy Fine says, let's murder everyone in Gaza. There's no calls for no one to ever speak to Randy Fine, etc. So anyways, pick a lane, guys, pick a lane. So if you're objecting to Zohran Mamdani's socialism, no problem, he actually is a socialist. And by the way, I'm not in DSA and I've never advocated for DSA, that's Democratic Socialists of America. So if I'm not in DSA, he's not a Marxist, but he's a socialist. Is there a difference? There's a massive difference. Norway and Taiwan are socialist in some ways, right? Japan, etc., depending on what you mean by socialist. So Norway is very, very different than Maoist China during the purges, right? So they're very different. Anyways, but overall, as you guys know, I'm against the status quo, I'm for change. So yeah, I don't agree perfectly with Mamdani's positions, so what? By the way, I agree with some of his positions on childcare, etc. Mainly, I love that he's trying. Give him a chance, let him try. With Cuomo, you're gonna get nothing but the status quo. All the prices are gonna go up. He's not gonna care about you at all, right? All right, so finally, and for everybody on TV, loves the guy who's never gonna bring you any change. Loves the guy who's gonna serve the donor class. They've been attacking Mamdani the entire time and nothing about Cuomo. I mean, Cuomo did a commission on corruption and then shut it down when the commission said, "Oh, we found out who the main culprit is. It's you." And he's like, "That's it. I'm shutting it down immediately." Okay, I mean, on that alone, no one should ever consider voting for him, let alone the grannies and the fannies. And so, but finally, I saw a piece. Ari Melber, good job interviewing Zohran Mamdani. So credit where credit is due. He's an MSNBC anchor. He's a good guy. And Ari had this funny little game he played with him. How quickly can you turn a random topic into a story about affordability in New York? So they played that for a little while, right? Why? Because Mamdani did not run a campaign going, I'm Muslim, I'm socialist, I'm socialist. The other guys did that, right? He ran a campaign that said, hey, I'm gonna look out for you. I deeply care about affordability, which is by far the #1 issue in New York. It actually doesn't take a rocket scientist. You just have to not be corrupt. You just have to not be obsessed with the donor class and serving them. So he did that, and that's why he's leading now, and let's hope he wins and we get some change in New York.
Sorry, it's muted. Yeah, that's so true about the AIPAC dollars. There's no reason or indication that Zohran should or will lose this race. I don't want to jinx anything, but the polling has always been in his favor from the very beginning, and by a lot, right? The fact that Sliwa is in the race is kind of funny to me. Even, I know we have to have a Republican, but I just forget about him. If he wasn't such a crazy character, I think we'd forget that he's a serious Republican candidate for the mayor of New York right now. The fact that Andrew Cuomo is still in the race, I think when Zohran was on Ari Melber's show, I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was something about like, why is Zohran Mamdani in the race? It was like a rapid lightning speed round or something. He's like, why are you in the race? And he goes, because I whooped Andrew Cuomo in the primaries. I'm paraphrasing, he was a little bit more eloquent about it than I am now, but it's the truth. And I've never seen somebody just like lose so badly to someone who they have tried everything in the book to demonize this person. They've called him a communist. They say he's not a socialist, he's a communist. They say he's a Islamo-Marxist. They say that he would be happy if there was another 9/11. All these things that they've said about him or implied about him, just none of it has been sticking because the people of New York are still just like, you know what? He's talking about rent control. He's talking about grocery store prices. He's talking about transit. He's talking about childcare. He's talking about all these things that are actually going to impact the people of New York. And the irony of it is that is very America first, right? Right now, we have a president who has been running on this platform of America first, but instead he's saying he's going to attack Venezuela, he's gonna attack Nigeria all of a sudden. Like all these things, we're spending so much money on these international endeavors. And in the meantime, they're cutting SNAP benefits for the American people. And I know we're gonna talk about that a little bit more later on in the show. But what Zohran Mamdani is doing is very much people-centric. And from the get-go, they said, are you gonna visit Israel? And he said, no, I'm gonna just be here in New York, taking care of my people. And that's all that these American people are so desperate for these days. And the people who are in power are just not going to listen to them. And I think that's very indicative that's very obvious whenever you listen to any of the Democratic establishment talking about how to govern the American people.
Yep. The last thing that I hope for is that if he gets more Jewish votes than any of the other candidates, which is how he's polling, to use that to shut up everyone in the establishment that is pretending that speaking against Israel or criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic. Because no, you all said that Mamdani was an anti-Semite, even though he never said anything against Jews. If he gets the majority of the Jewish vote, all these talk of anti-Semitism, you'll know, was always a lie. It was never about protecting Jewish Americans. It was always protecting Israel, a foreign government. So that's what everybody in Washington actually serves. So that's another reason why Mamdani is refreshing, because they're like, whoa, that's an American politician not swearing to God that he'll serve a different country. That is so strange and different in America. Isn't that weird that that's weird? Like if a politician in America won't kiss Israel's ass, it's considered shocking. But if you say that Israel controls our government, they're like, how dare you? Well, you guys are doing it with your actions. You're saying that you find it bewildering anytime any candidate doesn't bow down to Israel. You said it, not me. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, the MAGA civil war continues. I think it's one of the most consequential things that have happened in American politics. All right, we'll do it when we return.
Have you been there?
Let's go to Super Chat. Jason Olea, thank you for the contribution. Appreciate you, brother. Mohit Baki said, super excited and optimistic to hear some good election news later tonight after the main show. Can't wait for the TYT election coverage. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do a live video for you guys as soon as the results are in. And so I'm looking forward to that too. Man, it'll be heartbreaking if Zoran loses. If after all this, the dirtbags win and Andrew Cuomo is mayor of New York, nah, better not happen. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, guys. So I'm going to be either excited or angry later tonight. Michael Catalano says, absolutely love the Jenks 2 cents banner. Are we going to get more like Jordan's Just Saying, Anna's Angle, Sharon's Side of Things, and the like? Well, don't put any thoughts in our head, Michael. We might. But thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. Now let's go to YouTube members. Ashanti says, how dare Mamdani come in and try to lead New York City with no history of corruption? The gall. Great point, Ashanti. That's what they kept saying throughout. Like Andrew Cuomo was like, he has no experience. He has no experience taking all this donor money and serving them instead of you guys. I mean, how's he going to serve the donors with no experience like this? The great Mandini says, Wrath of Khan Dragon. I love Yaz, Jenk too. The great Mandini says, don't forget how complicit Democrats are with what Israel is doing and has done. Yep. 100%. Stephen Early says, I thought NPR did a fair interview of a Cheney supporter this morning. It was eye-opening how much he was responsible for all the powers Trump is now wielding with abandon. Yes, Stephen, that's a great point. It's a point we made in that Dick Cheney story. He's the one that opened the door to all of these executive authority abuses. And yet they're kissing his ass here as he passed away today. By the way, one of the reasons that Mamdani's had a shot and then use it to take the lead is because New York City has great public financing. If you live in New York, they match 8 to 1. It nullifies the advantage of the Cuomos of the world. Because even if you raise $40 million, Zoran raised enough to get his message out. So public financing is the answer. Faye Scott Smith writes in, as someone who unfortunately voted for Donald Trump, my personal opinion is give Mamdani a chance. Love how open-minded you are, Faye. Love it. It's great to have you here. Joe S says, let's hope when Mamdani wins, he can implement his policies and it works. It would be nice to see policies implemented and working for the average people. Couldn't agree more with you, Joe. Let's go to tyt.com. Trip Ferrari says, Cenk, this is my first comment ever. I watched you all for the past 7 years and all of you saved my sanity. John from Philly. John, thanks for commenting, brother. Thanks for watching all that time. Great to have you here. Cabbage says, Sliwa must feel like a warm turd when Cuomo gets the big endorsements from the right. But honestly, he can't be surprised. Because doesn't he know by now that the Republican Party totally works for the donor class? Is that news to Sliwa? Maybe it is. Jack Callahan says, they are morally, referring to the IDF story we did. They are morally depraved, Cenk, and we are right behind them. Look at Trump and MAGA. So look, I don't know about MAGA, but you're right about Trump. He defended the war criminal Eddie Gallagher. So everybody does it, including America, unfortunately. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys. And one of our members on TYT.com just wrote in, his name is I Lives in America. It's not his name, it's his handle. He said, I mostly watch TYT on my phone, so I ain't saving no data, dog, but still a good deal. Yeah, that's talking about our Noble Mobile partnership. So yes, I might get into a Turkish oil wrestling match with Andrew Yang later. Because I actually want you guys to use your data. I want you to watch the Young Turks. And Andrew started Noble Mobile, and he's gonna give you money back if you don't use your data. But most importantly, guys, it's $50 a month. You're gonna save a ton of money if you switch from that from Verizon or AT&T. By the way, if you switch, Verizon and AT&T are gonna try to get you back and offer you a deal anyway. So you'd be crazy not to try to switch. So go.tyt.com/switch. Go.tyt.com/switch. All right, Yaz, what's next?
Up next, we have Tucker Carlson. Let's roll the tape.
So to see someone lie or speak in a way that's dishonest but totally unmoored from physical reality is always bewildering. And you're like, but no, that's not, I said the opposite. Right. And then you realize, of course, it's not about you or what you said. It's about something bigger.
Yesterday, Tucker Carlson explained to Dave Smith why he believes his fellow conservatives are trying to get him canceled. So we'll show you a little bit more in a moment. But first, Cenk, your 2 cents, what are they?
Yeah, so look, I've got my issues with Nick Fuentes, but later on in this video, I'm gonna show you some examples from others who have said things worse than Nick Fuentes. Was there a campaign to cancel them? And are they right to try to cancel Tucker by proxy because he talked to Fuentes? I have strong opinions there as well.
All right, so here is more of Tucker Carlson explaining what's actually going on with the right-wing civil war, as people like to call it.
It's about something bigger, and there are a couple things. I mean, the most obvious on a political level, this is a fight over what happens after Donald Trump. What does the Republican Party look like? Does it actually adopt an America First foreign policy as promised 10 years ago? Or does it maintain its neoconservative posture, which is very unpopular with the public and has borne no fruit? I mean, it's been a disaster on every level for the United States for, since 9/11, at least. But what happens after Trump goes? And that's what this is about. That's why they're vesting the energy in this. That's what the rage is about, because they don't want to lose control of foreign policy. I just can't say that enough. It's about foreign policy. They don't care about domestic policy because they don't care about the United States, but they do care about the US Treasury and the Pentagon, the projection of force on behalf of Israel.
So for the past several days now, we have covered the growing storm of backlash against Tucker Carlson from his own party. Yesterday, Douglas Murray became the latest conservative to do so. He's now infamous for his debate with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan's show, in which Murray tried to argue that Smith can't comment on Israel if he's never been there. Anyway, Murray wrote the following op-ed in the New York Post, and it reads, "Conspiracy kook Tucker Carlson is no conservative and no friend to Charlie Kirk and JD Vance." In the op-ed, Murray points out that Carlson claims to be a friend of both Vance and the late Kirk. In fairness to Murray, Nick Fuentes, who Carlson interviewed last week, was a longtime opponent of Charlie Kirk's, and he's made some genuinely disgusting comments about both JD Vance and Vance's wife, Usha Vance. Here's just one example. Take a look.
Why would we let this fat guy who's married to a Jeet and works for a gay CIA Fed, why would we let him grow? It's like so insane. The JD Vance operation is in full swing, man. Think about it. Andrew Tate and Bronze Age pervert and all these people for years, all they talk about is going to the gym, being a vitalist, fighting the Matrix, India smells bad, all this kind of. And now they're all in favor of a fat race mixer who's married to a Jeet who named his son Vivek, who was mentored by a Jewish neocon and a gay Fed, Peter Thiel, and the guy's in bed with Israel. And that's your guy? And I'm the controlled opposition, really? Your guy is literally a fat gay race trader who married a Jeet.
Okay, that was a lot. All right, so now let's watch Tucker Carlson explain the reason why he felt conflicted about bringing Nick Fuentes on and why he ultimately made the decision to do so.
I thought a lot about it for many reasons. And for one, Nick had attacked my family, my father, my wife, one of my children by name, a lot. And so it was hard for me to get over that, For another, as I've said a million times, I thought he was a Fed. But basically, in the end, I decided Nick Fuentes can't be canceled. They've been trying since he was a freshman in college. It doesn't work. In fact, he's gotten bigger. He is enormously talented. Anyone who denies that is lying. And he has like a not fully coherent, but a semi-coherent kind of position. And I would like to hear what it is, because that's kind of my job. And I'm also interested because he's the most influential voice for men under 30 in the United States. More influential than me, more influential than you. I don't think there's any question about that. And I wanted to make the point that I often make, and now seems even more important than it ever has, which is that virtue and sin are not transmitted genetically.
Right.
There is no such thing as blood guilt.
Okay, so finally, last one, we're gonna end with Tucker Carlson spilling the tea about private conversations that he has had with both Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, who are both now publicly shredding him.
I mean, I talked to, Mark Levin. I talked to him right after Charlie was killed. I called Mark Levin and I called Ben and I said, I don't want to fight at all with you. I'm actually not obsessed with Israel. You clearly are, but I do think we agree on a lot of things and let's not fight. I called them both and I said that. And they were both nice to me about it, very nice. And then immediately started attacking me again. Whatever, they can't help themselves. But Levin did say something amazing to me. He's like, everyone hates Jews. There are Jew haters everywhere. And I'm fighting the Jew haters. And it's like, I mean, I guess if you spend your life on Twitter, you run into a lot of Jew haters, but in real life America, no, that's not actually, most people are really nice. And there is no Nazi movement building in America. That's just fake. And but I really think Levin believes that.
I love that. Hey guys, let's not fight anymore. But I do wonder, Cenk, if all of this infighting, this so-called right-wing Republican civil war, I wonder if this was always just a natural conclusion, the inevitable end for a party that has had so much inherent hypocrisy just baked within it, right? There's a lot of contradictions within the Republican Party and on the right. Perhaps you could say the same about the left, but I think on the right, it's like very, very obvious, very blatant. They say one thing, they do another thing. They'll say one thing one day, they'll say a completely different thing the next day, and then they'll just move on as if nothing has happened or nothing has changed. And I feel like after a certain point, those contradictions are going to start to directly impact one another. And now you have two factions of the party, let's say, roughly two factions that are fighting against each other, and they both believe that they are still right wing. And they're kind of both right because they both represent some version of what the right has become amidst all of these contradictions. I hope that makes sense. What are your thoughts, Cenk?
So first I want to go to one of our members because I want to give him credit because I had forgotten this and it's a great point. D'Angelo Jones wrote in, he's a YouTube member. Wait a minute, didn't Trump invite Kanye and Fuentes to the White House? But they bring out the pitchforks for Tucker. So this is not to just blame Trump for having dinner with Fuentes, and Trump says that he didn't know who Fuentes was at the time. I'm not trying to get back into that. But listen to what D'Angelo is saying. He's saying when Trump did that, and Kanye is obviously an anti-Semite, couldn't get more anti-Semitic than him. Fuentes obviously is. They said it's okay. Trump did it, but it's okay. But when Tucker invites Fuentes, they have a completely different reaction. Think about why. If you wanted to protect Jews against anti-Semites, you would have the same reaction, potentially to both, right? But if you only wanted to protect Israel and didn't give a damn about Jewish people, you'd say, oh, since Donald Trump works for Israel, it doesn't matter that he meets with anti-Semites and has dinner with them. Totally fine, we're not worried about it and bothered by it at all, right? But Tucker is against Israel's actions and funding Israel. So all of a sudden we care so much about Israel. I mean Jewish people. Do you? Doesn't look like it. So look, I'm gonna read a critical comment too in the middle of the story because we do the show with you guys and it's okay. I want to hear your voice too. So at TYT.com, one of our members, Scoopster, wrote in, normalizing Tucker, the new segment from TYT. Gross. Okay, Scoopster, let's talk about it, right? So did Tucker Carlson do a defense of Jewish Americans when Fuentes was on with him? Yes. If you say, hey, it wasn't enough, no problem. Okay, but he did. So folks who are saying that he agreed with Fuentes about the anti-Semitism, they're just lying that he didn't do that. Okay, so by the way, all of Nick Fuentes' fans also saw that Christian defense of individualism and not blaming the Jews, okay? But no, I know, he's Tucker Carlson, so don't give him credit for that. Second of all, so Nick Fuentes is a terrible guy. I think it's very fair to call him a bigot, obviously. I mean, you just saw it with your own eyes, right? You heard it with your own ears. So, but he is at this point very, very popular. That's why people are freaking out, because of how popular he's become. So should no one in media do journalism? No one should talk to him? Look, I'm worried about talking to him, I get it. So it's not like I think, oh no, what's the big deal? But I think journalists should talk to him to find out what this is about, don't you think? Okay, no, I know, but if it's Tucker, don't do it. Okay, guys, if I really thought this was about anti-Semitism, I'd go house on him, right? On Tucker. So Fuentes is clear. He's made himself clear. And if you're a Nick Fuentes fan, don't tell me that he's not bigoted and racist. He says it all the time. He's very proud of it, right? I mean, you just saw it there. Jeet is a racist term for South Asians. So are we supposed to cheer it? Okay, I mean, that's ridiculous. He says, oh yeah, JD Vance was a race mixer. I'm a race mixer. My wife is Chinese and my kids are half Asian, half Turkish. So, okay, what am I supposed to cheer Nick Fuentes? No, I don't cheer him. Okay, now, having said that, let's look at the other side of the coin. And that doesn't mean this side of the coin isn't true, it is true, okay? But two things can be true at the same time. So first I'm gonna start with graphic 3 here. So I get it, this is a little bit older one, and Ben Shapiro's sophisticated enough to cover this up later. But you remember, he did tweet, of course, Israelis like to build, Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage. This is not a difficult issue, hashtag settlements rock. So, well, that sounds as racist or bigoted as Nick Fuentes. So obviously everybody did a giant campaign to cancel Ben Shapiro, right? Wait, I'm hearing from our producers that no one did that campaign because being bigoted against Arabs and racist against Arabs, no big deal in America. Mainstream media has no issues with it. There was no campaign at all against Ben Shapiro at the time. Okay, well, now let's go to present day. Let's go to Randy Fine. He's a current sitting member of Congress. He said, tell your fellow Muslim terrorists to release the hostages and surrender. He says to Rashida Tlaib, a member of Congress, your fellow Muslim terrorists. And then he says, until then, hashtag starve away. So he's saying we should continue, Israel should continue to starve all of the Palestinians to death, and we should finance it. Now, has Nick Fuentes ever said we should starve all the Jews to death? No, right? Now that doesn't mean that he didn't say other terrible things, he did. But he's never said anything as terrible as Randy Fine. So that's why there's a giant effort in the country to cancel Randy Fine, and anyone that Randy Fine would wait, I'm hearing from producers, there is no such effort at all. They're not trying to censure him, sanction him. Everyone's allowed to talk to him. Piers Morgan had him on the other day. I was on with him. No one said, Cenk, how could you talk to that disgusting genocidal freak? You should be canceled for talking to Randy Fine. No, because being racist against Arabs, being bigoted against Muslims is considered perfectly acceptable in America. But then they say, if anyone is anti-Semitic against Jewish Americans, I think that's equally bad to anything else. They say, no, that's the one thing that you should all be canceled for. But wait a minute, remember the point that our viewer made earlier. But when Trump did it, that was still fine. When Trump talked about the Nazis in Charlottesville, without getting into the controversy of exactly who he supported, how he supported, but there was actual literal Nazis marching in the streets. But that was less of an issue. And what Trump said about it was a big story, but nobody said you should never talk to Trump and you should can't, etc. Because it wasn't about Israel. This isn't about bigotry and racism. In fact, let's go to one more clip from Randy Fine and see if we could find someone who is clearly more racist than Nick Fuentes.
The fact of the matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one. The only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
Has Nick Fuentes ever said there's something deeply wrong with the Jewish culture, it must be defeated, and we should nuke it twice? We should try to nuke all the Jews in America. No, he's never said that. That doesn't mean that what he said isn't terrible. I'm gonna say now for the third or fourth time, because people love to do smears, he has said many, many terrible things, but none as terrible as disgusting racist and bigot Randy Fine. Yet there is no campaign to cancel anyone over Randy Fine or talking to Randy Fine. So can you begin to see now, this isn't about people's concern about bigotry. This is a concern about their beloved Israel that's financing almost all of Washington, apparently a ton of the media, and they demand complete loyalty and subservience to Israel. So as Tucker Carlson fights back against that, no, I am not going to attack him for that. Sorry. Like, if you want to have me disagree with him on a million other things, great, I do it all the time on the show, right? But if you say, no, you have to cancel Tucker along with Fuentes, okay, the minute we all cancel every single person who's ever talked to Randy Fine. But that's not gonna happen because the powerful in this country are enormous bigots. They hate Muslim people. They don't really particularly care about Jewish people too. They care about the money that's coming from Israel. But let's get to Douglas Murray as quickly as we can.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about the right is that they have for so long, for the most part, stuck with the same talking points. And I think that's a big part of the reason why they've been able to galvanize so much support amongst Americans. They haven't had as much of the infighting that the left has kind of become notorious for. We love to attack our own. That's not saying anything controversial even to say that. But in media, it does get tricky, especially today, right? The days of corporate mainstream media dictating the narrative are long gone, for better or for worse. We live in a world where people like Nick Fuentes, people like me for that matter, can gain access to the public, can have public platforms, they can gain public support for viewpoints that may or may not be popular in the mainstream, again, for better or for worse. So then, the question becomes, is it something about regulation? Is it about censorship? Or is it about freedom of speech, freedom of press, allowing people to have access to people? And the thing is, I don't necessarily agree that we shouldn't speak to one another, people who are inflammatory, who use racial slurs just very, very casually. But there is the question of platforming these people. The thing is, the argument is always that, they already have a platform, they're already out there. And at some point, especially, Cenk, I know whenever we're putting together these shows, like these are conversations that we have with the production team is, what is the benefit of these stories? And sometimes you kind of have to weigh it, right? Is this something that is now culturally relevant that it would be irresponsible not to speak about? Or are we amplifying a voice that we would rather not be amplified, right? And it's hard because again, it's like how much of that is censorship and how much of that is just like, we're reporting the news to the American people and to our audience, to these people who trust us to report these certain things to them. And the flip side of that, or another aspect of it, I should say, is that the mainstream news, right? They are covering everything pertinent to the White House, to Donald Trump, to Congress, things like that. And they are busy. They are inundated with all these stories. They just don't have a lot of time to talk about the stories that we tend to talk about on these shows and on similar shows. There's just too much out there. So it becomes, a matter of like personal responsibility and also like that line, like where do you draw your personal line or where does your network draw that line as far as like, who are we talking to? How are we talking to them? I do think also that it is important to have people, Cenk, I haven't talked to you since you went on, what was that, Piers Morgan's show with Stephen Miller's wife. I think it was important for the two of you to be on that screen together and to oppose one another that way. Anna, she's also all over on CNN and on various programs talking to people who are opposed to her viewpoints and things like that. And I think it is important to have those conversations and for people to see that there are opposing views out there. So again, it's not a simple answer as far as like what is the best way forward. Everything is going to be kind of case by case, but this is the reality of the world that we're living in. AI is now here, so that's going to add another layer of complexity to this problem. But Nick Fuentes, whether we like it or not, he is out there. He does have an audience, and at this point, the things that he says are culturally relevant. So there's that.
Yep. By the way, Douglas Murray implied that you know what? It's ridiculous to say that Charlie Kirk was turning on Israel. Everyone is lying about it. So I wanted to really, have you been there, Douglas Murray, as he was attacking Tucker Carlson and saying that he should be canceled, of course, in the New York Post, which is basically run by Israel. So I just want to real quick give you two quotes from Charlie Kirk. April 16, 2025, so a little bit before he was murdered. Once anti-Semitism becomes valid grounds to censor, even imprison somebody, there will be frantic efforts to label all kinds of speech as anti-Semitic. The same way the left labeled all kinds of statements as racist to justify silencing their opposition. So it appears that Charlie Kirk disagreed with Douglas Murray and Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and every single person saying that not just Nick Fuentes, but Tucker Carlson should be canceled for the supposed crime of anti-Semitism. So meanwhile, they're all pretending they're on Charlie Kirk's side, and they say, of course, that Charlie Kirk had no concerns about Israel at all. So that's why I wanted to show you this.
I am going to continue to ask the question, a 20-hour response in a country the size of New Jersey. That begs a big explanation. And more importantly, America is significantly underwriting the Israeli government $4 billion a year. We as American taxpayers deserve answers to this. We deserve answers. Also, if we're going to get into a regional or world war based on an intel failure, so, we pay for this. What are we buying, right? I got smeared as a Jew hater, an anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist because I said exactly what I just said. And I refuse to back down despite all the smears thrown at me. Because I learned during COVID. I learned when they told us that it came from a bat in the Himalayas. I learned when they told us the vaccine was safe and effective. I learned when they told us that ivermectin was horse paste, that you better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free.
And the same people who smeared Charlie Kirk for that are now smearing Tucker Carlson for the same exact thing while pretending to speak for Charlie Kirk. But you just saw it with your own eyes and you heard it with your own ears. So don't let them lie to you. We'll be right back.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
That's horrifying.
Let's go to comments. Super chat. Jason Olea says, I love this race because it's a bellwether and I hope to oust this presidential administration. He's referring to the Mamdani race. On YouTube member section, Jeffrey Dottie says, I don't like Piers Morgan, but he gives a voice to Cenk and I can appreciate that. That makes sense. Thank you, Jeffrey. They see that's very logical. Kathy L says, great job, Cenk, covering Fuentes objectively. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. It's not that hard. You call out all the things that he does wrong, and then you have a normal conversation about it without freaking out. And the freak out again is definitely not about all the racist, bigoted things he says. No, they're all freaking out because, oh my God, he's turning people against beloved Israel. Robbie David said Tucker clawed his way out of their fold with a good portion of their audience. Yeah, he did. But it's really his audience. So MAGA, look, we'll see how it turns out. But I think that MAGA agrees with Tucker Carlson way more, 1 billion times more than they agree with Ben Shapiro. But the mainstream media is going to try to, no, MAGA loves Mark Levin. Mark Levin's the real leader of MAGA. No one in MAGA likes Tucker Carlson. Good luck, good luck. Our job is to report accurately. That is not what's happening at all. It doesn't matter what you think about Mark Levin or Tucker Carlson. Who's winning that battle? Tucker Carlson's winning it by a country mile, not close. Balk says Nick should be able to talk, but people should know what he's been saying for the last few years before he tried to clean up his act. The whitewashing of him is absurd, in my opinion. Balks, I totally agree with you. Nothing wrong with calling out what Nick Fuentes has said, absolutely. But should be allowed to talk, and we could debate him on how wrong he is on other races, etc. And without everybody flipping out and trying to cancel anybody who's opposed to Israel. The minute they try to cancel someone not opposed to Israel, okay, then I'll have a conversation. But literally every single person they try to cancel is opposed to Israel. And they're like, no, it's just a coincidence. No, it's because we care about Jews and bigotry. I don't believe them at all. I think they're enormous liars. Everyone in mainstream media and in American politics. Ahab LC Wizzy writes in, Cenk, can we add public financing to the populist plank? Or how do you think current politicians feel? No, it is in there. It's money in politics. We got to get rid of the money in politics. And now even the tons of the right-wing base agree the only way to get the money out of politics is public financing. So otherwise you're gonna have private financing, and the private financing leads them to work for those private interests. And now everybody sees it clear as day. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, we're out of time. Okay, but we're gonna take the quickest break of all time here. Just stay right here. We're gonna do Operation Joy free for everyone. So Yaz is gonna stay with me. You've got stories that made you happy, share them because they make others happy too. We'll do that right after we return. So guys, normally what happens in Operation Joy is I read a couple of leftover comments from this show because I can't help myself, and then we get into your guys' comments. But today, Yaz, one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain Pascal's equation, obviously, and how it relates to joy and what I'm gonna ask the audience to do. Although in Operation Joy, I feel like in some ways the audience does exactly what I want, they share their joy. And in other ways, like all the different tips and hints, I don't know that anybody's done a single one of those. If you ever did any of the things that I suggested to bring you more joy, write in and tell me, okay? So that'll give me a little bit of joy. Even if it didn't work, even if you tried it only a smidge. Okay, so anyways, the leftover comments from members on TYT.com from the show. Our bloated ego said, I wish you would stop saying Israel is donating to Congress and others. Israel is not donating to anyone. American traitors are donating to Congress and others on behalf of Israel. Guys, I don't want to get into calling people traitors because that gets, like I've done it when it comes to politicians and people in power, but I don't want to do it to civilians, even if they're billionaire civilians, etc. God, they make it so hard though when they get, like they do it so spectacular like Larry Ellison, etc. But overall, if people are donating because they love Israel and they, etc., I don't want to, it's not right but I don't want to call them traitors. And so maybe I'm a softie, and remember, it's not just folks who care about Israel. There'll be people who care about India or Turkey or Bulgaria, and they give to politicians to support those countries. They're not traitors, they're just, yeah, they have some loyalty to the old country that they got to let go at some point. But the most important thing, guys, is that we've got to stop the politicians from being able to take bribes. So instead of like saying, okay, that guy gave the wrong money, we hate that guy, the much better way to go is go, sorry, you can't give money anymore. If you want to support a Bulgaria first policy or an Israel first policy, you've come to the wrong place, because we don't do that here in America anymore. That would be the greatest day there is, because we care about American sovereignty. Most importantly, because we want the politicians serving us, the voters. All right, Pseudo Dragon says, sorry, did Tucker just say Fuentes was the most influential guy with men under 30 and then say in the next breath that there is no Nazi movement building in the US? Can't have it both ways. That point is a little bit devastating. Meaning like, yeah, good point, brother. Like, that's an interesting point. Because look, I don't know what you want to label Nick Fuentes, neo-Nazi, not just anti-Semitic, just race. I don't know what you want to label, right? But he is growing in leaps and bounds, and that part is true. We can see it in the numbers, and that movement is growing. But by the way, that's why in this particular case, Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Massey are not the bad guys. They're the guys standing in the way of the Groypers. Because if you get past the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Groypers are next. Those are Fuentes' fans. Don't go in that direction. So Israel keeps pushing and pushing, and they're gonna get not just Jewish Americans, but so many others into trouble here, because it's going to accidentally grow this movement that should not grow, about that then spreads fear and hatred about different racial groups or religious groups. But no, the mainstream media goes, no, we're never gonna relent. The politicians say, no, we're never gonna relent. We're gonna force Americans to serve Israel. We're gonna force it until you hate Jews. Don't do that, don't do that. But they're never gonna listen. We have to defeat them in the polling. That's why Zoran's election today is so important. All right, last two. Infinity said, I love how the Jenks 2 cents banner at the bottom makes Jenk look like a boxer on both sides of the coin. Okay, people are really enjoying this graphic. All right, nice job, Carlos. I think Carlos did it, I'm not sure. Was it? It's Carlos? Okay, yeah. WWJDD said, Cenk, I was watching an older show where you talked about the Israeli media telling the truth. To me, this is indicative of the reality at play, which states that a majority of the Israeli nationals living in Israel are in favor of this war. This speaks to the cultural issue we've heard others talk about. Yeah, so that was a little bit complicated, brother, because there are portions of the Israeli press that are excellent, and that's where we get a lot of our news. But the majority of the Israeli press still does propaganda, and very like bigoted, racist propaganda against Palestinians and Muslims. But the reason why Israel can have an honest portion of their press and we can't is because Israel has trouble calling their Israeli Jewish press anti-Semites and canceling them. Whereas here in America, you report anything critical of Israel, God said anti-Semite, cancel them. That's why they don't exist in mainstream media, because they've already been canceled. Look, guys, if you don't know, everyone that works in mainstream media is scared to death of saying something critical of Israel, because they know it's career suicide. And they could, I would love for anyone to deny that. I'm happy to have a debate about that anywhere in media. If they're all claiming, no, I've never been worried about being fired if I say something critical of Israel, they're giant liars. It's in all of their heads. And that's because Israel's the king of cancel culture. They cancel anyone who dares defy them. All right, we've been over that. Let's do Operation Joy. Okay, guys, before I get to people's comments, I'm gonna explain Pascal's equation as I threatened to do earlier. Okay.
Can't wait.
So Pascal had this funny little, I don't know if it's really a theorem. I mean, it's almost a wink and a nod. He said, look, if you should believe in God. Why should you believe in God? He said it's just logical, because if you believe in God and it turns out there is no God, no harm done. They're just going to drift off into non-existence, and there's no downside at all. But if you don't believe in God and you're wrong, then you're going to be punished for eternity. So he said, if you just care about yourself and making sure you're all right, you should believe in God just to make sure that you're going to be okay. Now, that's not a very intellectual argument in favor of God. It's more of a practical argument of maybe either believing in God or pretending you believe in God in your own head. But that's known as Pascal's equation, and I get it. And logically speaking, it is technically correct, okay? So I have my own version of Pascal's equation. So, Uyghur's equation doesn't really sound good. Jenks equation, I don't know. We'll have to come up with a clever little thing for it. So here's the thing. I believe that there is no afterlife. I don't need you to believe that. It's okay if you believe in an afterlife. I don't want to wig you out. It's just my opinion, okay? So, but okay, like Pascal, let's do an equation here. So if I am wrong and there is an afterlife, well, okay, great, live a good life. I mean, I try to live a good life. I hope I don't get punished in the afterlife because I try not to harm other people. In fact, I try really hard to help other people, right? And you guys are all beautiful Young Turks members and viewers, and that's a part of our ethos. We're open-minded and open-hearted, and we try to help others. So there's no downside if it turns out that I'm wrong and there is an afterlife, okay? But if I'm right and there is no afterlife, my God, you gotta live now. You gotta live now. That doesn't mean harming other people. It doesn't mean going nuts and doing fentanyl. Okay, don't do that, don't do that. Soon you will be, if you do that, you'll be going to the afterlife earlier than you planned. So, but why don't you live your life like there isn't a second life? Because there's some chance that there isn't a second life. So soak it in, do as much as you can. Enjoy the past through nostalgia, enjoy the future through hope, enjoy the present by actually focusing and concentrating on what you're doing, whether it's delicious food or fun with friends or, guys, we're not unaware of all the problems in life, but two things can be true at the same time. We could have all those problems and at the same time, enjoy the positive things in life as well. And that doesn't make you a bad person. Joy is an act of defiance. It's being rebellious against everyone that doesn't want you to have joy, which unfortunately is a lot of people in society. All right, yes, what do you think?
Yeah, Pascal's wager equation, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that is a thing that is quite pervasive. I've heard several different religious people from different religious backgrounds give me some version of that, And yeah, sure, if you want to dedicate your life to something that you're just like betting on, like, oh, maybe this will pay off, maybe it won't. Good for you. And if that makes you a better person in process, then I'm not complaining about it. Live your life if you're not bothering anybody. But yeah, like ultimately, I think it does come down to living your life with some kind of intention, right? Whatever it is that gives that intention meaning or significance to you, that it can be anything, right? But as long as you're living intentionally, I think that is something that is so important, especially now when the world is so crazy, arguably crazier than it's been within the last several decades, at least here in this part of the world. And we have to, I think I've said this before, that my husband says I'm the most spiteful person he knows because I do live my life in spite of everything going on around me. I'm actually, when I was in LA, I was talking to John about this. We were talking about how I sew now and I have all these hobbies that I do. John also, by the way, has plenty of hobbies, right? But I have a lot of things that I do, and it's because I'm like, you know what? They're not going to take my peace from me. I'm not going to have to buy all this like polyester clothing off of Amazon or, whatever these, crappy brands are trying to sell me, because I have agency in my life, even though at times it feels like I don't, right? Because I'm taking it back. In spite of everything, I'm taking it back because they're not going to get me. So like, that's how like being present and having agency over my life manifests for me personally. And it works for me. I feel like I am happier since I started being intentional about that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if I'm right, we're all running out of time, and then we don't exist forever and ever. What are you, crazy? You gotta enjoy this life. What do you, like, are we supposed to go through life like somber and angry and sad? Why? Why would we do that? Why don't we try a little bit of happiness? Okay, speaking of happiness, I bring you this breaking news story as my joy. The race in Virginia has been called. Abigail Spanberger has won the race. She will be the next governor of Virginia. She is a Democrat. Now, okay, so am I thrilled? Oh my God, a corporate Democrat won the governor's race in Virginia. Oh, your lives in Virginia are going to improve so much. No, I'd be shocked if your life improved at all in Virginia from her actions, but I'm sure some donors will be thrilled about it. But was she better than the alternative? As usual, yes, obviously in my opinion. Between a corporate Democrat and a corporate Republican, I'll take a corporate Democrat. On the off chance that they do 5% of their agenda, right? But that's not the main reason I'm excited. The main reason I'm excited is because in my experience, whoever wins the governor's race in Virginia, whichever party wins it, is going to win the next congressional elections. It's a bellwether, and it's a pretty significant bellwether. And so the fact that the Democrat won the governor's race means that Donald Trump will very likely lose Congress in 2026. So we got a whole year left to go, long way to go, and many, many things will change. But already his polling numbers are dropping like a rock. Now they lose Virginia. So, I mean, look, Trump, I think, is authoritarian. I think the more power you take away from him, the better off we're going to be. So I'm pretty excited about that. All right, one of you guys wrote in on YouTube, or two of you did actually. I'll read those, then I'll read the ones from tyt.com/joy that we have prepared, and then I'll take more comments from members. David Michelle said, I'm going to be a grand uncle by the end of the month. My boyfriend's niece is having her first baby. I'm ready to spoil that baby. There you go, David. Spoil away. It's the parents' pain in the ass job not to spoil. But for uncles and grandparents, you're supposed to spoil. So I love it, perfect one. Beautiful Mistake says, I voted today and that makes me happy. Yeah, me too. And as someone said earlier in the show, every time I vote, they kind of spoke for me. Every time I vote, I feel like, yeah, take this establishment. What are you gonna do about it? Yeah, there's a vote. So today in California, we were voting on Prop 50, and that's the strike back against Texas and redistrict California. And I think we're gonna pick up about 5 seats if yes wins. I voted yes, because you know me, I don't believe in unilateral disarmament. And I think that Gavin Newsom's right about this. So let's see how it turns out. The polls will close in a little bit there, and the polls are gonna close in about 45 minutes in New York. Okay, now let's go to tyt.com/joy, where people have wrote in beautiful things, including Boop. First, my birthday's coming up here on November 4th. Wait a minute, that's today. Happy birthday, Boop. And if I could have anything, it would be to blast my best friend, Leo. Here he is. Once I spoke with a pet psychic and she called him a clown dog, saying his job is to keep a smile on my face, and he really does. And I hope he makes other people smile just as much. And she included a picture of Leo. Okay, fun for everyone. Thank you, Bart. Well deserved from Boop and from Leo, and happy birthday again. All right, now we go to, more from Boop. Second, TYT, I've easily seen every episode since 2018. Okay, you're my new favorite person. And later expanded to watching John's Damage Report. Your network is a big part of my day, and I thank you for your authenticity and commitment to journalism. Well, who doesn't love you, Boop? Thank you. Happy Halloween, happy birthday, etc. That's awesome. And I love that you've been here. And a lot of people watch and they never write in. Every time you write in and tell me that you've been watching all along, it makes me feel good. So thank you for adding to my joy. All right, Velvet Jones wrote in, I love Halloween, it's the best. It's the one time of the year that odd, gothy weirdos like me feel at home. I've been so excited to share this vibe with Morgan, and boy, did she deliver. Morgan's their young daughter. My parents bought her a tiny little pumpkin, and she was absolutely obsessed with it. While I was planning out my carving design on mine, she kept looking at hers, trying to steal my marker. Throwing caution to the wind, I let her draw on her pumpkin. She drew with precise intention. She'd take a moment to study her work, deciding it needed a bit more, then throw down a few more deliberate strokes. As a true artist, she poured her soul onto the canvas. I love the design so much that I had to carve it for her. Is it the most beautiful jack-o'-lantern ever? Yes, yes it is. Welcome to the spooky season, Morgan. And that's written in by Velvet Jones. All right, and there it is. Bart, hit me one more time. Aww. Thank you. Okay, so yes, there they are, living intentionally. Took the words right out of your mouth.
Yeah, I love that. I love that there's so much like baby energy too. I love that, someone's about to become, what was it, a great uncle right before the holidays. So that'll be so much fun. I love that the kids are involved with Halloween. I think Halloween is my favorite holiday ever. I know you can't tell from this room, but if you guys remember, my old office was all black. That was like my spooky, cozy room, very Scorpio season. Happy birthday, by the way, to our Scorpio in the audience from a fellow Scorpio. Yeah, you know what? It's weird, Jank, because this year, I don't know if this is just a thing that's been happening every year and it's just like snowballing, but like especially with everything going on with the government shutdown, it's been really hard for me personally to like get into the season, because usually my birthday is at the end of October and then Halloween and then straight into the holidays, everything. And it's just like, I feel like the vibes have been a little bit off. So it does make me feel better to see everybody just enjoying the holidays and yeah, living intentionally. And maybe I should take my own advice and just like live my best holiday life in spite of everything. It does get very, very hard though. And I do want to take a moment to remember that for a lot of people across this country, going into the holidays is going to be very tough this year. So if we can send some joy their way, I would love to do that. And hopefully things will settle down before the holiday season really ramps up. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, going along with that, I'm going to try to present Don Data Dragon as a role model here. So he wrote in early, he writes in frequently, he's written into Operation Joy. So we know that he served in the armed forces and lives in the state of Washington, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've seen him fight, well, first of all, we know he fought for this country. And so that's a huge thing right there. He served, and we know that he's trying to help everyone to the best of his abilities, and he's a good, open-minded, open-hearted person, wonderful member of the community here. And so he's doing the best he can in helping people. And earlier he wrote in about how he's gonna get some weed and some wings, and he's gonna watch the election returns and Operation Joy, et cetera, and the show. So if right now he's high and enjoying those wings, and he's already done all he can for others, let the brother have a good time. Right? Wow, man. Whatever that is, yeah, okay? And so guys, I'm giving you permission to have joy from time to time. And then see if you can expand it a little bit and expand it a little bit more, right? But for God's sake, at least give yourselves a little bit of a break and have a little bit of weed and wings. Okay, or whatever floats your boat. Okay, so now last one from tyt.com/joy. No, there's two more, and then a lot of you guys have written in, so I got to start hurrying. Okay, this week marked our. This is the one true coffee dragon. This week marked our children's last Shichigo-san 753 festival. So we did it right. It's a special celebration of children reaching certain milestone ages. It's literally in the name. Boys do it at 5 and girls at 3 and 7. And since our kids are 2 years apart, they got to do it together. Although we're atheists, my wife decided to do it proper and had the Shinto priest introduce our kids to the local shrine god, which was pretty awesome. The best part was when I heard the priest solemnly read off our street address during the prayer, which forced my kids and I to stuff our fists into our mouths to keep from laughing. The priest told the kids that they are now under the protection of the local god, which is kind of cool, and then he gave them swag bags, because why not? I'm so happy that my kids get to enjoy the traditions and celebrations of both of their cultures. They had Halloween and this in the same weekend and are now looking forward to Christmas. All right, I love it. They included a picture. Bart, coming up. Aww. There you go, okay? Excellent. And way to dive into that culture. You know, YTP Renewed asked on Twitch, as it relates to this story, how does TYT reconcile being okay with religion with being otherwise progressive? So, look, I'm a stone cold atheist at this point. And do I think fundamentalist religion has done massive damage to the world? Yes, and to humanity, yes. But that's just fundamentalist religion. If we don't want people to smear all Muslims as fundamentalist Muslims, or same thing for Jews and Christians, etc., we shouldn't do it for anyone. We shouldn't do it for anyone, right? So, and are some of the best people on earth religious? Yes, absolutely. Some of the best people I've ever met are deeply religious. So my role model is Martin Luther King. I don't know if you know this, but he was a reverend. I'm kidding. Of course you know that, right? You know he was a reverend, and look at the amazing things that he did. But it's not just like, not just that. When I was running for Congress, I met this woman who was deeply religious and was obsessed with helping the poor and the needy in Palmdale area. So it's one of the outskirts of LA. And her religion had her, it was a driving force in her life to create goodness in the world. So I'm not gonna be against that, right? I've gone to a couple of mosques now with imams, again, obsessed with helping the poor, the hungry, and the needy. So those are good folks, and obviously, in my lifetime, Jewish people have been amazing to me, and a lot of them are atheists, but some of them are deeply religious Jewish people too. So anyway, that's why it isn't about what's true and not true. That's a different debate, and that's more of a philosophical show, right? In this case, it's about how decent are we to one another. And of course we should be decent to religious folks. All right, let's go to Tug on the Tubin. Jank, Mary Beth here. I downloaded episodes of Old School to keep me entertained on the long flight home from Europe. I was laughing out loud as you all were describing the miserable experience of flying as I'm crouched in the coach on a 9-hour flight in my aisle seat. This was an upgrade from the middle seat on the way here, on the way there. I wish I had watched the Best Trips episode live though, so I could have outed myself as a Melungeon. No, you're a Melungeon, really? We had a discussion on Old School about Melungeons. So that's amazing. That's a very rare ethnicity in America. That's a mix of Native American, Portuguese, Turkish, and black. Wow. What in the world is that? Okay, well, that's a Melungeon, and they live in mainly Western Virginia and that area of the Appalachians. Anyway, so apparently Mary Beth is one of them. My family has the genealogy records. I have a DNA test and the characteristic look of Melungeons in my region. We have unruly, almost black hair, crystal blue eyes, and fair to olive skin. We are a real thing, and I blend in most everywhere I travel. That's amazing. And a follow-up from my last post, Sturgill Simpson is our kind of people. He creates independent country music, which has been described by your buddy Trey Crowder as Americana or country music that doesn't suck, because it's not under the thumb of Nashville, and the Nashville establishment hates that. Sound familiar? Oh God, there's a Nashville establishment? Jeez, we can't get rid of this establishment. Anyway, last part of it. After winning a Grammy for Best Country Album, Sturgill was not even invited to the Country Music Awards, so he parked himself in front of the event on a blanket with his Grammy in hand and playing for change. You aren't the only person asking though. Marty asked me to share a screenshot of his merch that asking, who the F is Sturgill Simpson? Okay, and apparently there's a shirt with that. And that's a shopsturgillsimpson.com. Look at us doing a plug there. Okay. All right, now that I know who Sturgill Simpson is, I love the brother. Look at the establishment. He wins a Grammy. They still don't invite him to the event. They're unbelievable, no matter what kind of establishment it is. All right, yes. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, kudos to Sturgill Simpson. I only know like what he did in Nirvana cover, so that's how I know him, but I like him a little bit more now. That is crazy what they did to him at the CMAs. That is egregious. That is just blatant, just we don't accept you, we don't like you, and deal with it kind of thing. But across the country, various institutions, we are seeing the establishment being challenged, and they're not winning as often as they used to, and that is very, very encouraging, and it is also very, very cathartic. I did want to add on to what you were talking about, the viewer who asked about TYT's like acceptance of religion, even though we're progressive. Yeah, I think a lot of us feel similarly to the way that you do, as far as like, I have a lot of problems with organized religion as it is practiced, as it has been practiced, its implications in history, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to go into all that because I know you guys know all the reasons why someone would have a problem with something like organized religion. But I will say that something that doesn't get talked about as much with it, maybe not in my circles, is that organized religion is so much more than just a belief system. It's very often a community, right? That is your community. And I come from an immigrant family, in an immigrant community. So very often, like the mosque, like that was where people would meet up, right? That was the community center. Regardless of how religious you actually were, and regardless of how much you were actually practicing, that was the place to be, and that was kind of like the thing that centered the entire community. And the holidays, the traditions, all of that it brings structure to your life, and especially when you're raising kids. I don't have kids, but my husband and I, like we do talk about like if we did have kids, neither of us are practicing religious. I was raised Muslim, he was raised Christian, but it's like that has been a conversation, the idea of what replaces that community, and it's very hard to come up with something. So I do appreciate that aspect of it, for better or for worse. That community aspect is not always good for people, but it is something that I think represents something that is lacking in our society today. So if we could find something to replace it that's a little bit more, less with a lower barrier to entry, you don't have to believe all the things to gain access to that community. I think that would be good, but I just don't know what that would be yet. But I'm looking. If anybody has any ideas, I'm open to hearing about it.
Don't encourage me. Don't make me start something. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, in all seriousness, so
what would that look like?
Well, again, don't encourage me. So, all right. So, guys, here's the situation. A bunch of you wrote in. I can't help but read them, so I'm going to read them, and we're going to comment a little less on them. We're going to power through them because we're out of time. But I also want to tell you, Anna's on CNN right now. It starts 8:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Their election coverage. She's on with Charlemagne the God and Alex Michelson, who was good host out here in LA. So I want to let you guys know that you could double screen, you could do whatever you like, and we do have Old School coming up at 9:30 p.m. Eastern right here. Me, Michael Schur, and David Kohler, the return of the Kohler tonight. So you guys are gonna love that. But let me read all your comments first before we go. So on TYT.com, Doodle Dragon Imran said, Jenk Thagoras Triceps Precept. That apparently is his nickname for me. That's a little bit tough. You're awesome at the shirts, but that's a mouthful. Anyway, he is saying the ones that he does remember from the lessons that I gave in Operation Joe earlier. He said, soak it in, the present is a gift, lift others up, and joy is an act of defiance. Pretty good, pretty good. I did say all those things. And then now that you repeated it back, it sounded pretty good. Benjamin says, "Oh, Jenk thinks we're beautiful." Shucks, I do. I think you really are. So who else is that open-minded and open-hearted? That's literally our community. That's a beautiful community. Burrito Bandito says, it seems easier to be negative about your life if you believe in a better life after this one. But if you don't believe in another life, then you better enjoy every moment of this one while it lasts. Exactly. Exactly, you got it exactly right. Guys, since I have the benefit of not believing in a second life, I think, oh my God, I'm running out of time. I gotta soak it in, I gotta enjoy every part of life. Because on the last day, you're gonna think, wait, how did I spend my life? Did I spend it sad and angry and this or that, or nervous or fearful? Or did I do a good enough job of spending enough time enjoying this life, getting the most out of this life? Trust me, you're gonna wanna say at the last day, oh, thank God I lived. Thank God I enjoyed this life. All right, although I get that that's ironic because I'm saying there isn't one, but still. Navinix gives us a little bit of joy here. Breaking news, the moment we've all been waiting for. The incumbent mayor of Cincinnati won the re-election. I have no idea who the incumbent mayor is. The last time I knew the mayor of Cincinnati was when it was Jerry Springer. Not joking, that's real. Okay, Dennis Kucinich was the mayor of Cleveland and Jerry Springer was the mayor of Cincinnati. Isn't that trippy? Anyway, so I don't know whether to celebrate that or not. Meowser's Clause that established Meownt wrote in, talk about joy, I'm leaving my toxic job in big tech tomorrow. I can't wait to live for my own motivations instead of taking orders that poison society. I don't know what's next, but I'll follow what's right and positive and see where that takes me. Well, I love your courage. So, and I love that you're joyful about it. We had somebody, an off air, a great viewer and member here, say that they left an Israeli defense company because of us. And now they work still for a defense company, that's their job, right? But they left the one that was an Israeli one because of their conscience. And they feel much better about it now. They feel great now at their new job. And they're doing something productive and not something that hurts folks. I love to hear that. Oh my God, if we help to get you to a job where you feel better about yourself, oh, that's amazing. All right, on Twitch, RSDJ1 says, I can give you joy, persuaded the wife to let me rent our spare cottage in the UK to any American family that needs to get out for a few years if they need to. Oh, that's.
Oh, Jank, I think I'm moving. It sounds like I'm moving to the UK because, like, I would make that cottage so cute. I
believe it. I believe it. Your background gives me joy. I mean, it is. It's.
I'll go to the UK for a few years.
Yeah. All right. So there you have one taker, RSDJ1. Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Although, come on, if Yaz is going to come and pretty up your cottage, you're going to love that. You crazy?
It'd be a great time.
Yeah, Octo Squiddies, when asked to share joy, said, we already did the Dick Cheney story. I know I'm not a good or nice person.
Wrong, sir, wrong.
You're not allowed to get joy from that, okay? Rio Ral says, my joy, major US authors and Japan's major publishers are all attacking and successfully suing OpenAI for stealing their content. Okay, I like that you're getting joy out of that. That's great. Microgram says, going through life broke or always struggling doesn't leave a lot of room for joy, unfortunately. Oh yeah, I hear you 1,000,000%, right? But you know what I'm saying is don't do one of these like Hare Krishna things or like, oh, everything is great, I don't need to pay the rent. No, you need to pay the rent, right? But while you're struggling to pay the rent, etc., I know it doesn't leave a lot of room for joy. That's why I'm reminding you, do it anyway. Do it as an act of defiance. You shouldn't have any joy, but steal 5 minutes of your life, turn into thinking about only positive stuff, and enjoy that little bit of respite, if you will, and then turn around to your life that's giving you trouble and go, yeah, now what are you gonna do about that? Take that. And even in the darkest of times, and brother, I've been there. So if Douglas Murray asked me, have you been there? I can say, yes, I've been to poverty. But it's not great. I get it, it's terrible, right? But as you're struggling through it, try what I call the pocket of happiness, a little popo action, with the good kind. Avenger Dragon 89 says, we went to Creepcast Live, tickets were a gift on October 31st, so that was my Halloween. My wife and I share October 31st as our favorite holiday. I love it. Ria wrote back in, new joy, made one of my favorite meals for my kids and they're eating up macaroni and cheese with canned tuna, super basic but good source of protein and minerals. Another dish I used to have when I was dead broke, and I loved it. By the way, I've told you guys before, mac and cheese, Hot Pockets, cold cuts, and cereal, right? But I kind of secretly love all those things. So I made the best of it. Yeah.
Totino's pizza rolls, gross. But also, like, do I want some? Sure. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Do I eat hot dogs from 7-Eleven? Yes. Do I eat those weirdo like rolled up things and I don't even know what's inside of them?
Wait, yes. Jane, do you, like, I have to tell you, so my husband, my now husband, when we first started dating, his like struggle bus food, or like when he just couldn't cook or whatever, his bachelor food was like those ranch style beans with a can of tuna. So gross. But he would just like stir it up. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking about this. Stir it up in a bowl and just like eat it like he was still in college. And I was like, please stop. Like, you can't live this way. And I married him, but
Okay, so he's better off now. So he's got a lot more joy and better food and better decorations. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. His life has improved significantly in the past few years.
But back in the day, I definitely enjoyed the tuna and mac and cheese. Give it a shot.
I feel like that one's a classic. Yeah.
That's a classic. That's more fair. Okay. Last ones are from YouTube members. Okay, Jonathan Boris Johnny said, I've definitely gotten a lot from Jenks Operation Joy strategies. One I can think of off the top of my head is clearing your mind of negative thought and how it's surprisingly challenging. Isn't it? But that's why you should give it a shot. Guys, if you can, 5 minutes, 1 minute, just 1 minute of sitting there and going, you know what? I'm not gonna think about anything negative, only positive things. Are there positive things in your life? Of course, even when I was dirt poor, the tuna and mac and cheese was a positive. Right? So the Fruity Pebbles was a positive. I got Fruity Pebbles the other day, just out of nostalgia, right? So there's a way to do it. It's not necessarily easy, and don't beat yourself up. Never beat yourself up. That's counterproductive. Just do the best you can. Garrett Mitchell says, there's always a flower that'll grow through the cracks in the concrete. Oh, I love that, Garrett. Beautiful. And last one, AC. I live in Trump country, Pennsylvania. Oh boy. Okay, today at the gym, I saw an older guy wearing a shirt with a huge retro numbers on it. 8647. It brought me some joy and slightly restored my faith in humanity. Now look, the 8647, the right wingers get touchy about it. They think those numbers mean canceling someone for good. So put aside the numbers. I'm not saying good to the numbers, okay? But you saw that there is someone in Trump country that's actually on your side. Brother, you're gonna see a lot more of that. I'm telling you, I just said this a little while back. I'm getting stories of people ripping up their Trump lawn signs. So I saw the polling the other day from NBC News and from Emerson YouGov. Ooh, he in trouble. You know why? Because the prices keep going up. The economy's not getting any better. He was supposed to help you and he isn't. He's getting slaughtered on the economy. 2/3 of the country are against him on the economy. And the economy is always the #1 issue. So if you take joy in that, there you go. Well, in 20 minutes, the polls close in New York. And then we might soon find out if we're all going to have some joy or not. So stick around the channel because I'll do a live video on it. We're gonna have Old School coming up at 9:30. That's just for the members. Make sure you're checking that out. Hit the join button if you can, help the show. Plus you get all the membership stuff, whatever you want. Or go to tyt.com/join. And Anna's on CNN, so you can check that out as well. All right, Yaz, you're awesome. Thanks for doing the show today.
Thanks. Of course, I always love doing Operation Joy. I'm also gonna be filling in for John later on this week. So you can catch me hosting the Damage Report on Thursday and Friday.
All right, awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you in a little bit.